live. Members of council and people are being let in, delegations, etc., media. Okay, I want to welcome everyone to our electronic community of the whole meeting on September the 14th, 2021. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Regional Council is practicing physical distancing. I am here in the chamber along with Chair Redmond and various staff, and all other members of council are joining us virtually. I will now call on Committee Clerk Jessica Rudy to perform the roll call.
Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Erb.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Galloway.
Present.
Councillor Harris. Councillor Harris. Councillor Jaworski. Councillor Jaworski. Councillor Jowett.
Here.
Councillor Kiefer.
Here.
Councillor Lorentz is absent. Councillor McGarry.
Present.
Councillor Nowak.
Present.
Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Strickland. Councillor Varanovich.
Present.
All present except for Councillors Harris, Jaworski, Lorentz, and Strickland.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. We now need a motion to reconvene and open. Can I have someone to move and second that? Councillor Erb, Councillor Nowak. Would you please use your icons to say yea or nay to reconvening an open session? That's carried, thank you. First, we would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather virtually today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. Any declarations of pecuniary interest on today's agenda items under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? I am seeing none. We do have some delegations who are waiting, but the first item of business is from Dr. Wong and an update on the COVID-19 pandemic. Good morning, Dr. Wong.
Good morning, Chair Galloway. Thank you very much. Good morning to all of council. Stevie will be moving along my slides. Thank you, Stevie. So if you could go to the first slide, which should say key messages. Thank you. So I'll start with my key messages. There are three of them for today. One, we are seeing a slowly increasing trend in the number of daily cases in Waterloo region, especially among those who have not yet been vaccinated. Two, as a result of recent provincial lab changes, in order to more accurately represent the proportion of cases that are variants of concern in our community, we will be including going forward all suspected Delta cases in addition to all confirmed cases. And three, vaccination is the most powerful protective measure available to us, but no single measure on its own is perfect at preventing COVID-19 spread. Residents should continue to take public health precautions to lower their risk. We go to the next slide, please. I'll start with some overall trends. So we are seeing a slowly increasing trend in our daily cases, especially among those who have not yet been vaccinated. As of yesterday's update, we currently sit at approximately 30 cases per 100,000 per week. Consistent with rising case numbers, we are starting to see incremental increases in hospitalizations and outbreaks. Infections and severe illness continue to be most frequent and serious among those who are unvaccinated. As of September the 8th, the 7-day average rate of COVID-19 in Waterloo region is more than 9 times higher in unvaccinated individuals compared to fully vaccinated individuals. In Ontario, among those in hospital for a COVID-19 infection, those who are unvaccinated are 24 times more likely to be hospitalized than those who are fully vaccinated. And among those in intensive care, those who are unvaccinated are 43 times more likely to be in ICU compared to those who have been fully vaccinated. Next slide, please. Regarding the updates to variant reporting, currently our dashboard shows the proportion of cases where a mutation or variant has been detected. For the Delta variant, these are cases that are confirmed through whole genome sequencing, and it can take several weeks to receive confirmation. Surveillance testing is conducted by the Provincial Public Health Ontario Laboratory. The provincial laboratory has recently transitioned to only testing 50% of samples for whole genome sequencing. Since the majority of cases in Waterloo region, the vast majority, are the Delta variant, the change to surveillance testing would lead to a significant underreporting of the variant over time. Next slide, please. In order to more accurately reflect the proportion of cases that are variants of concern in our community, we will be including suspect Delta cases in addition to confirmed cases. This reporting change will be implemented today. As a result, an additional 780 suspected Delta cases will be reported. This is not a change in terms of number of new cases. This is simply a change to our reporting classification. And then the final slide, please. Layers of protection against COVID-19. So I would like to share a graphic from Public Health Ontario that illustrates how layers of protection work together to provide the best protection against COVID-19. This is referred to as the Swiss cheese model. Vaccination is the single most powerful protection measure available to us, but no single measure on its own is perfect at preventing COVID-19 spread. As contacts between people are expected to increase this month, the risk for the Delta variant to spread rapidly also increases. It is important that everyone, including those who are fully vaccinated, continue to use multiple layers of protection. Protective measures work together to provide the best protection. Remember the 3 C's. Avoid closed spaces, avoid crowded places, and avoid or limit unprotected close contact, which means no masking and or distancing. COVID-19 spreads easily and can be spread before you realize you are sick. Practicing protective measures together with full vaccination offers the best protection against COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Wong. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Wong. As again, you're doing an amazing job. My concern is today in the record, there's a report on the release of cases involved with children in schools. Do we know how severely these children are being hit? Initially, it was thought that it didn't really affect children. Now we know it does. But are they getting hit as hard as some of the adults?
No, that's an excellent question, Councillor Foxton. So what we are seeing in our schools, which is cases among children as well as among school staff, at this point in time, it reflects what's going on in the broader community. So these are cases that are detected among school children or staff. we have a number of cases among school children and staff, which is very, very similar to everywhere else in Ontario right now. We detected those before, except that school wasn't in. So we're continuing to detect them now. In terms of spread within schools, that is represented by outbreaks happening in schools. So we would declare an outbreak in a class if, through our investigation, it was reasonable to conclude that one case could have gotten it from another case. So as long as there's two cases in a class and one of the cases could have gotten it from the other case reasonably, then we say, there could have been classroom spread. But we'll see that. We generally do see some of that, whenever there are cases. But in large part, what we are seeing is actually a reflection of the spread that is occurring in our community. So we'll have to continue to monitor this. But in general, what we have seen with the type of school measures that have been put in place is that the actual spread in school settings tends to be much less frequent than the number of times that we detect cases among students or staff. So in answer to your second question about the severity, we do know that in general, children are less affected by severe outcomes. However, the concern is if there are many children that are infected, then there will be a minority of those who could have more severe outcomes. So the key is we don't want to have a lot of spread among any age group, including school-age children. And the best way to prevent that type of significant spread is to slow the overall transmission in the community, and to keep up those measures in the school environment, to try to minimize the spread. So, but the key way in which we're seeing transmission is really in the community, through oftentimes gatherings, birthday parties, sleepovers, gatherings of multiple families, in which there's a mix of vaccinated and unvaccinated people, for instance. So, it's something we have to continue to monitor, but we want to keep our community transmission rates low. That in addition to vaccinating everyone that is 12 years of age or older, is our best defense against serious complications in younger children.
Are we still looking at the vaccine for children coming out in the new year?
Yes, that's still the timetable that we're looking at.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Julie.
Okay, I had a couple of questions, Dr. Wong. I don't see anyone else. I think Councillor Urbanovic now has just put his hand up. But on the testing protocol for the Delta variant and the new protocol where they're only going to test 50% of the cases, and you're going to continue to report the confirmed numbers, which will only be 50% of potential numbers, and the suspected numbers. So is the suspected numbers going to be based just on an extrapolation of the confirmed numbers, from maybe some historical data to kind of inform, what percentage of the cases, are going to be suspected to be Delta versus the ones that are confirmed to be Delta?
Well, thanks for the question, Councillor Galloway. So we're going to use the best proxy indicator as recommended by Public Health Ontario for our community. And that is when we see that a COVID-19 specimen doesn't have two specific types of mutations. So when it when a specimen lacks two specific types of mutations, it is believed that that almost always means it's a Delta variant. In the past, they would confirm all of those through genomic sequencing, but now since they're only doing 50%, we are going to consider, just based on the best advice from Public Health Ontario Lab, that all of these that screen negative for these two specific mutations are in fact Delta variant cases, because since Delta has come into Ontario and since it started to to enter different communities in Ontario, the vast majority of specimens that don't have these two specific mutations are in fact Delta variant specimens. So that's why we're going to be using this proxy that's considered
Okay.
very, very good. Yeah.
Okay. The second question I had before I go to Councillor Vivanovic is kind of just a continuation of what Councillor Foxton asked in terms of children under the age of 12. I've seen just different reports recently, some in the States where they're maybe expecting approval, I guess the temporary approvals as they've had in the past, possible yet this month. I've seen someone also project by Halloween, which I thought was an interesting benchmark date to use, Halloween, for it. But are we on a similar time track in terms of Health Canada versus the CDC or whoever else, whatever the equivalent in the States in terms of the approval process? So that's the first part of the question. The second is, once those approvals are provided, when do we have a plan then to implement, to vaccinate? Are we going to rely on our clinics again, or are we going to rely on pharmacies and primary care offices to provide that service?
Yes, thanks for the question. So I would say that the timeline should be roughly similar. We, have heard from companies like Pfizer that they're planning to submit their data later this month. So after they submit their data, there's usually, some that's required by the regulatory authorities to then approve the vaccine, assuming all the data they've received is what they need and they don't have any further questions. And so right now, what I understand from the province is that we're looking at a timeline of end of this year, early next year, for vaccines for the 5 to 11-year-olds to be approved, at which point, areas like ourselves would be ready to roll it out. So we are planning to roll the vaccine out as soon as it's approved federally and approved provincially to roll out. And what we're looking at right now is a model that continues to try to leverage some of the more routine existing channels that we would have, such as our family practices, our pharmacies, and clinics that we could hold in collaboration with school boards to determine the best locations for their school populations. Right. So that would be the plan, and we will provide more updates on that plan as it becomes more specific.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Wong. Councillor Rubanovic.
Thanks very much, Chair Galloway. And I guess I just wanted to follow up on a couple things, Dr. Wong. And I mean, you touched on what we're seeing in schools, and I guess I saw something just recently where the numbers stateside in schools have reached a record this past week, something like 1,900 students across the United States. And I guess what I'm really wondering is, is there more that we can be doing, to look at protecting our school kids in the region? I know we've done some really great work with respect to the testing programs that we've made available to workplaces, and I know municipalities are dealing with that. Is that something that perhaps we could work with the school boards on, and if that may be a way of trying to mitigate risk in those settings?
Are you specifically speaking about testing?
Rapid tests.
Rapid testing. Okay.
Yeah.
So rapid testing as a systematic measure among school children is not currently recommended by the Chief Medical Officer of Health or the Ministry of Health, which advises the Ministry of Education. And so their approach, based on the evidence that they have, is to focus on ensuring that access to PCR testing can be made more readily available. So for example, they are doing a pilot right now of some sites in Ontario where certain high-risk contacts of a case in a school setting who are asymptomatic are given take-home PCR testing. And that's a pilot that will look at whether or not that type of activity is of added value to protecting school-age children further. Right now, what we as a public health unit have recommended and what our school boards have implemented, similar to many other health units in Ontario, is we have recommended to the school boards that they take a cautious approach and that they add in some more layers of protection where possible to the minimal guidance to the minimum requirements that the Ministry of Education has put in place for school boards. So that's why our school boards have been looking at, maximizing the use of masking, distancing, cohorting, for example, where possible in their activities, while also trying to give students a more normal experience compared to last year. So allow for more activities, such as more sports activities and extracurriculars, for instance, while also taking a cautious approach and trying to maximize some of those protective layers where possible. So that's what our schools have done as well. So they have gone beyond the minimal requirements as set out by the Ministry of Education, and we'll have to keep monitoring. The Chief Medical Officer of Ontario has indicated that he would continue to monitor the situation, but at this point in time, the Ministry of Health doesn't believe that the addition of rapid testing, systematic rapid testing, will be of added value given the additional limitations of the test in the current environment. And so they'll continue to look at that and monitor that. What's happening in different areas will help inform that as well. So we are also in regular contact with the Chief Medical Officer, the Ministry of Education, and other public health areas about what's happening in our schools. So we'll continue to inform that picture as well.
So just in terms of the test, if I sort of understand it correctly, the sort of the quickest, the easiest, the least invasive, I guess, is the rapid test, and it's also the least costly, but it also has the least amount of accuracy. Then we have the shallow, I'll call it the shallow PCR test, which has significantly more accuracy and is more costly, but it needs to be sent away for testing. It's not a rapid situation typically. And then there's the deep PCR one, which is sort of usually for symptomatic people, and that one has the most accuracy. Is that sort of a good understanding of the continuum?
Well, thanks for your question, Councillor Verbanovic. I would say there are two categories of tests. One is rapid antigen screening, which is often referred to in the public as rapid tests. And the other one is PCR testing, which is not a screening test, by a diagnostic test. And there are rapid PCR tests as well, but they're not as widespread, not as rapidly available, and they do have also some limitations. So they're not as good as the standard PCR test. But in general, if we look at these two categories, rapid antigen screening and rapid antigen screening and PCR tests, yes. Rapid antigen screening tests, have some valuable strengths, and they're recommended in certain settings, like workplace settings, and they are the least accurate. So, and as an example, if you have, rates of spread that Ontario currently has, you're going to have a lot of many more false positives than false positives compared to the gold standard PCR test. The other issue that's overlaid on that is the type of swab that can be taken, right? So we know that before, or still now, right, the nasal pharyngeal swab is the one that's considered to be most sensitive for the PCR test. But there are now other approved means of taking a PCR test that is less invasive. So, combination of throat, nasal, or types of nasal that's more, anterior in the nose. So there's this variety of extra ways to take the test. And another example is the emerging spit test that they're piloting in some areas in Ontario for children. So there are other methods to obtain the specimen. And I do know that our testing centers in Waterloo region, all of them are offering less invasive means of getting the PCR test as well, in an effort to try to make it easier for children as well as adults to obtain a PCR test. So that's an area where, there continue to be some advancements, and over time, it's going to be, easier. It's going to be more choice in terms of less invasive tests, but it's already being offered in our testing centers now. So it really, so really the difference comes down to whether you're using a screening test, the rapid antigen screening test, or a diagnostic test, the PCR test. And what the government is currently recommending is a renewed focus on increasing accessibility to the diagnostic PCR test, because they feel that overall for the school environment at this time, it is the most value add in terms of testing approach.
Well, that's. I mean, it's good to hear that there's other options on the PCR coming, because as I think we all know, the one that sort of is, I mean, the colloquial has been the brain tickler version of that is one that certainly brought a lot of anxiety for folks, and if that one can be avoided, I think is probably a good thing. The last question I was going to ask, and if we go back, we don't need to go back to it, but your Swiss cheese slide and the analysis that went with it. It's now recognized fair to say that, I mean, spread obviously comes from droplets, but there is some recognition that it can be spread airborne as well now?
Yes, it can also be spread airborne, but according to the latest advice from Public Health Ontario, the large majority of the time, even if there's an airborne component to the spread, it is much more likely when people are in close contact, in closed quarters, and when there are no protections at all, like masking or distancing. So So yes, it's recognized that there can be aerosolized spread. It can be, in other words, you have to add in additional precautions like the ones that have been promoted more recently, such as improved ventilation indoor spaces, because you even though most of the spread occurs under close contact situations, you want to try to remove additional risks indoor settings through things like improve ventilation. And there is a greater emphasis on making sure that people have quality masks that are well fitting, because a lot of times what we notice in our case in contact management is that people actually don't wear the masks or wear them under their nose or something like that. So there is an increased emphasis as well to making sure people understand it has to be well fitting. Because, for example, you can have a medical mask, but oftentimes you see people with these big gaps on the sides of their medical masks. That wouldn't be effective either.
Right. I always admire the chin cover version of the mask as we walk around town, as opposed to what it actually is supposed to be covering. Okay, thank you so much for all of your ongoing work throughout the past. Well, actually, we're just about at the 18-month mark in 3 days. So thank you for everything.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, through the chair. And Dr. Wong, this isn't really for you, but to Chair Redmond. And I'll try not to get upset about this, but I do. This protesting in hospitals, our doctors and our nurses are working so darn hard. And one person trying to get into their cancer treatment, and the protesters wouldn't let them through. This has to stop. Is there any way we can have the police or any type of officials come in and move these people away from the entrances of the hospital so they're not blocking patients? It's such a slap in the face. I understand they want to protest their rights, but you do not prevent another person from their right to enter a hospital to receive care. And I think that should actually be illegal. I really think they should be charged, because I think this is horrendous what they're doing. You can have your voice and you can state your voice, but you do not impact another person's health that way or their rights. So is there anything we can do to prevent this for our hospitals and our hospital staff and nurses?
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Galloway. I think you reflect the vast majority of people in Waterloo Region in Canada, Councillor Foxton, with your outrage at this demonstration. People have a right to express their views publicly, but not when it interferes with other people's health care. So if I can take that away, I know that it's something that's been of interest across the province. I can talk to my AMO colleagues, and as chair of Waterloo Regional Police Board, I will broach it there as well and get back to you and council with some feedback.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wong, for the update. And we will now move on to our delegations. We have 4 delegations today. 3 of them will be heard in succession now, and the 4th delegation, which has to do with the regional bunker matter, we are going to try to schedule for 12:30. That particular delegation has been told to be available at 12:30, so that would be immediately after our scheduled lunch period, if we can aim for that. So I would just remind the 3 delegations that are now going to speak that you have 5 minutes to make your presentation, and that we ask you to leave the meeting once your issue has been addressed. But of course, you're welcome to watch the remainder of the meeting on the YouTube channel. So the first delegation to deal with the bus safety program is Iain Klugman, Communitech. Welcome, Iain. Where are you?
It won't let me join. Oh, there we are.
You were here before, so.
I know. It won't let me. My video's been. There we go. Now it's.
There you
there.
are. There you are.
Hello. Listen, thank you very much for having me on today. Sarah's going to give us a quick update as far as the results of the work that we've been doing through the Stay Safe program. We also have Rick Byers, who is our testing advisor. I did want to say thank you for the support. This was one of those opportunities back in, I think it was February, Sarah, where we got a group of people in the community together to say, let's see if we can't be a model for Canada. And that being a model for Canada actually has resulted in tens of millions of tests being deployed across the country in the last 8 months, rapid tests. The other thing I wanted to mention before we jump in with Sarah is that, I'm also the strategic advisor to the Minister of Health Canada on workplace testing. And so if you want to call me in any fashion at any point to dive deeper into the work that I'm doing at that table, I'm happy to do so. With that, I'm going to introduce you to Sarah Mostowich, who was married about a week ago. She joins us. I turned 60 and she got married. I think she got the better deal. But over to Sarah.
Awesome. Thanks, Iain. So to start out, I just want to echo what Iain said. Thank you to everyone so much for your support as we've been launching this Stay Safe initiative. We really think it's something that has provided huge impact to Waterloo region. So for people who aren't familiar, we have run a couple of pilot programs in partnership with Health Canada and partnership with the Chambers of Commerce and CIA.
Sarah, could I just interrupt?
Yeah.
We were informed that this presentation was on the bus safety program. Is that what we're talking about?
This is the Stay Safe rapid testing program that we ran using buses.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So we've piloted a number of models for rapid testing in Waterloo region, many of which have been scaled across the province and across the country as well. So one of these programs is we've been distributing rapid test kits to employers to encourage them to run rapid testing in their own organizations. And since that launch in April or so, we have distributed over 700,000 rapid test kits to over 5,000 businesses. We've also been doing our full service rapid testing initiative in the Waterloo region community, where basically anyone in the community is able to come to one of our Stay Safe buses, like we have up on the screen here, to get a rapid test. So we've had people, we've had families, we've had teenagers who want to make sure that they can get rapid tested before they're going out on a date. We've had kids before they want to visit their grandparents. We've had folks on their way out to lunch who just want to make sure that they don't have COVID and that they're doing kind of all they can to make sure that they're staying safe and not transmitting COVID as they're meeting their loved ones or as they're going to their places of work. And I just wanted to share that this is what cutting transmission chains looks like when it comes to COVID-19. And we regularly have even people who are fully vaccinated who are coming up to our Stay Safe booths. We encourage everyone, even folks who are vaccinated, to get tested regularly, who end up testing positive. And so we really view this as a really important tool in our community to cut those transmission chains and to help people stay safe. And we've had a number of lessons learned as we've been launching this program. So first of all, we've seen that rapid testing has a massive, massive impact on preventing the spread of COVID-19 in workplaces and community groups, but also a massive impact on individual mental health. I can't tell you the number of people who have been essentially crying, just saying, thank you so much for this tool. It's really helped me feel safe and feel empowered to go to work safely and to know that I'm not bringing COVID home to my family. We've also learned that access to rapid tests is really empowering for people. It helps people, take ownership over their own potential COVID transmission and to make safer and smarter decisions. We've also seen that on an individual level, people really want to be interacting safely and want a tool and a measure to help them do that. So in the last couple of seconds, I want to share a couple of initiatives that we're now piloting to extend this Stay Safe project. So we've been working to screen community groups. So not just workplaces, not just individuals, but community groups as well. So we've been targeting things like kids' summer camps over the summer. We have sports teams. We're actually screening 800 people at the Kumar Classic 3-on-3 basketball tournament this weekend. So really excited to be able to provide that service to help keep all of those kids safe. And we've also been basically documenting this approach for community screening, sharing it with groups to say, hey, this is how you can get rapid test kits from us to protect yourselves and protect your members before you gather together. And the last piece that I'll share is our Stay Safe Ambassador program as well. So recently we launched the Stay Safe Ambassador program as a micro-influencer strategy so that we can have people in the community as advocates to explain why rapid testing is important and why it should be used in community groups and workplaces and essentially, everywhere possible. So since we launched this initiative back in July, we've had 4,000 people in the Waterloo region community sign up. And as an ambassador, they can receive their own supply of rapid test kits that they can use for screening friends, screening family, talking to business owners, and talking to community groups to explain, what rapid testing is all about. So I think we're pretty much out for time. Any questions?
Right. That's great. Thanks, Sarah. There may be some questions and you can maybe add. I do want to apologize for that interruption I made. I was certainly mistaken. So questions, Councillor Kiefer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that presentation. My question is that, as you all know, the Chambers of Commerce have got testing kits out as well for the business community. And I know you're familiar with it, Iain, because I've talked to Greg and Iain about that. And so my question is, though, which of the two test methods is better, or which one should people go to before the other, or what's your take on that?
You mean either getting tests from the Stay Safe program or from the Chambers?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's all part of the same initiative that Sarah's been leading. We develop protocol here in Waterloo region, and then we pilot it, and then we push it out across the country. And so we piloted it with Greg. And then, of course, now it's, I think, 132 chambers across 4 provinces in Canada. So they're all the same tests. They're all coming through the same channels. That's part of what we are doing, and part of the focus that we have is to figure out quick and simple ways that we can deploy these things, develop playbooks, and then share those playbooks across the country.
So would you say that your test is more simpler, for lack of words?
They're the same test. They're all the Abbott Pen bio tests.
They're exactly the same. Okay.
Same.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, Carl, for asking that question. Excellent question. Thanks, Iain, for the answer. You mentioned summer camps, Sarah, and as soon as I think of summer camps, makes me think of the children, makes me think of the unvaccinated children. I'm just wondering how this has played a part and could play a part going forward with respect to the under 12s in our community and beyond.
Absolutely, that's a great question. So we're certainly encouraging community groups, especially that involve children, to take part in rapid testing so that, these unvaccinated kids aren't potentially contracting COVID as part of their groups. We're also looking at things like piloting some school initiatives. So there's been a number of private schools across Waterloo region that have approached us with significant interest in getting this to deploy in their schools. So that's certainly something that we're interested in exploring.
Yeah, and I think I have old information. I'm thinking about the origins of this program, where essentially if you were a business or a small business, come to the Communitech Hub, make an appointment, pick up a box. You now talk about the Safe Ambassador program or Stay Safe Ambassador program. Tell me a bit about how a community group can say, you know what, I'd like to get in on this. Maybe I missed in your presentation of where they line up, but could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if a community group visits our website at staysafescreen.ca, then there's a link for them to register as a group and basically receive a free supply of rapid test kits from us. And along with those test kits, they get some protocols that we've put together on effective ways of actually running rapid testing for their community group. So we've got tons of educational resources and training that we can provide as well.
Sarah, if I could, sorry,
Go
Dave,
ahead,
if I
Ian.
could, sorry, if I could just add on one thing that Sarah said. We've had tremendous interest from schools, from principals, from teachers, and from parents across Waterloo Region saying, you know, we would love to be part of this. We'd love to get access to these rapid tests, to be doing one more thing to help keep our kids safe, because I think that everyone's concerned about those unvaccinated under the age of 12 and the risk that they face, and of course the rise in the severity of symptoms, the exponential growth in viral loads among children and south of the border. And I think that so there's a lot of interest coming from not necessarily the school boards themselves, but certainly from individual schools across Waterloo Region, public schools.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Jowett.
Thanks, Chair Galloway. And just wanted to say a personal thanks, Iain, for your tenacity in this. I know that this came through our economic development group, and we know that you were fighting the good fight there with your staff, certainly with Matt Chandy and our staff and the chambers, to really push hard to get these tests out. And we know you were having trouble right up until that last minute, but you stayed with the game, and you pulled a rabbit out of your hat, and it's been an absolute great initiative for the certainly our region, but it's gone very, very wide, and we took the first steps. Well, you took the first steps, so thanks so much for really pushing, Iain.
Thank you. It was a classic Waterloo Region story of a whole bunch of people, business, government, community coming together Saturday afternoons, starting back in February, to say what is it we could do as a community and also for the country. So thank you.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you very much, Chair Galloway. And this does sound like a success story. Your numbers are very impressive. One of the things that comes up from time to time in discussing the antigen, rapid antigen testing, is the fact that they're now supplied by the federal government, and that may at some point have a charge attached to it. And I think that's probably one of the low barrier to using antigen and distributing it. It has been great. So I think maybe this is an Iain question, but how would you respond to people that say, how long is this free supply from the federal government going to continue?
Well, certainly, those are ongoing conversations that we're having at the federal table with the deputy ministers. And at this point in time, we're going to continue to purchase tests and distribute tests as long as we feel that they are needed. And that is the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
Councillor McGarry.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And this has been an incredible success story. And I can't tell you how many people I know that do this. It has been a success in our own family. In my son, who has been working for a factory over the summer, and a little concerned about that. He used it quite regularly. He may or may not have taken his girlfriend there to have a test before their date. There's all kinds of great stories behind it. I think Chair Redmond has asked my question already, and that's really about the cost. Certainly the federal government's been paying for them now, and thank goodness they are. If indeed that program comes to an end, do you have any sense of how much it would cost an individual or a business to pay for tests like that? And I do understand it's not just the cost of the equipment itself, it's a cost for the staff to be able to administer the results. Thank you.
Well, actually, there's Ontario has now approved EpiPen Bio for at-home self-administration. So there's no administration other than you conducting the test yourself in your home. So that's been approved. I don't see. I would say that the federal government, unlike other jurisdictions, has continued to say that, and I think this is the mistake that Israel made, is that they declared that the mission has been accomplished too soon. And certainly sitting with the people that I do at Health Canada, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we don't dismantle the systems and processes and tools that are in place until we truly know that mission has been accomplished.
Thank you. And I just wanted to offer my sincere thanks on behalf of our city and businesses in Cambridge and Waterloo region for the success of this program. Thank you.
Councillor Urbanovic.
Thanks. I too just wanted to really take an opportunity, certainly from a Kitchener end and from a regional end, thank all of you for the great work that you've done on this initiative. You know, from the start of the pandemic through your work, Iain, on Best WR, to the work that's been done on testing and the buses and the leadership that's been shown. It certainly has once again flagged that this region punches above its weight for a community of 630,000 across the country, and helps shape public policy in a way that not only benefits the people of our region, but in fact the whole country. So real kudos to all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Iain and Sarah and Rick, for the presentation today. I just wanted to also chime in with my appreciation for the program. It's interesting, so many things in our society start on a Saturday afternoon, and sometimes on the back of a napkin, and sometimes with a brown pop or a bottle of wine. And I think we have a good example of that here today. It's been very, very successful, and something that we can be very proud of as originating here locally, and then of course expanding into many, many other jurisdictions. So again, thanks and congratulations to all of you.
Chair, I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank you very much for allowing us to be here today. And I wanted to take an opportunity to thank Rick, Sarah, Greg, and the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers in this great region who made this possible. It's just a remarkable community when you send out an email and people are like, yeah, we'll get together tomorrow afternoon, and every afternoon thereafter to make something like this a reality. It just, as you say, really speaks to the fabric of this community. So thank you all, and if there's anything else we can do, and if you want to dig in deep on testing, then Rick Byers is your person, and he's available as well. Anyway, thanks again.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to the second delegation. That's David Marskell to talk to us about the Rolling Stones exhibition and festival update. David, there you are. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to give you an update. During my last update, the museum requested support, marketing support for the Rolling Stones exhibition Unzipped. I believe the decision was deferred at that time, and I was to seek upper level funding from the federal and provincial governments and report back. So today I just wanted to give you a quick update to let you know what we've accomplished since the last time. I should be under the 5 minutes, and I have a very, very short video of technology that lets me make it work. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we got it, David. Yeah.
Okay, just let me get this. There we go. So again, thank you very, very much. As you've seen this before, I'll go fairly quickly, and if there are questions, please just let me know. So our fiscal just ended June 30th, and we've navigated some pretty high risk times, as many others have, and we've accomplished many, many things. So I'm really pleased that you have to be double vaccinated to attend the museum as a visitor guest, and all of our board staff and volunteers are fully vaccinated. We've met our financial commitments with the municipalities. We've balanced our budget a year ahead of plan. We've been very creative in driving revenues, and we've managed our expenses well. One example was we hosted 50,000 paying visitors for the first time on drive-through last Thanksgiving. We hosted sold out days throughout the summer, and we have not lost sight of expansion for our future. The Rolling Stones show will be 60 years of history, and about this slide, it's all about, it's not Toronto, it's coming to Kitchener, and we're taking it from other major cities across Canada, and we have the rights to bring it here. The show, as you know, opens a VIP opening on the 29th, the public on the 30th. It's larger than the museum can host, so we're utilizing space around the community, looking for space around the community. We have a 115-person licensed capacity voodoo lounge for corporate entertaining, and that's being built out. You may hear it in the background, actually. 60% of the tickets sold to date are from outside the region. So tens of thousands of people are coming to this region because of this exhibition, and they will leave money at the gas stations, restaurants, hotels, bars, and so on. It's going to be a huge economic impact, positive impact for the region, and specifically for the hospitality sector. We will be announcing details of this shortly, but we have also secured the rights to the Ronnie Wood Art Exhibition, which we will host in Waterloo. The festival strategy, which is what drives the museum, will take place around the region, but outside of the region as well. I've spelled El Macombo wrong there, but 45 years ago, this coming March, the Rolling Stones played the El Macombo. We've partnered with Michael Weckerly. We're doing a number of very, very cool things related to that anniversary, and we'll be moving the art show there. Not the Unzipped show, but the Ronnie Wood show. Around the region, we have been working with whomever will collaborate with us. This is just some of the many, many groups that we have. Our list of logos is significant. I'm just so thrilled that the Fashion History Museum were quick to step up and say, we're in, we'll create something very specific around music and their costumes and their collection and so on. Working with the Cambridge BIA, with the film festivals, and Waterloo, we've got many things happening up there. We have the Museums Canada Summit, a conference of museums coming as with a focus on this exhibition, numerous activities happening in Kitchener. So this is truly a regional festival that we're creating. The Great Store is opened. It's available online. We've created Reverberations, which talks about cool rock moments in this community, which will open on October 7th. We'll let you know about that. The Mel Brown project continues and will be successful in launching an annual event and the conference I just mentioned. In terms of the funding you asked me to go and seek, we've been successful. We now have $70,000 from the federal government and $350,000 supporting this exhibition in the region. We've secured over $100,000 in corporate funding. This is going to be very large in terms of impact for this community and bringing people here. And I would argue it's going to be larger than anything we've seen before. National, international media, with over $850,000 in our own dollars and partner marketing dollars from Detroit to Buffalo to Quebec City to Toronto to Ottawa to Sudbury to Kingston, we are going to bring people to this community. You may have seen this banner flying around. It flew the shores of Lake Huron on Labor Day weekend. The Canadian International Air Show let us have airspace after their show to fly around the Blue Jays game. Fortunately, the dome was open, the Rogers Center was open. And then, of course, for the annual Labor Day game, Ticat game. I'm going to show this video. It's about 25 seconds. You can see center in the square down there, and it passes very quickly past where you're sitting or where you would normally sit. Sorry, let me just back up here and see if I can make this work. Maybe I can't make this work. Anyway, it was awesome to be in a very small Cessna with no doors, following a helicopter, pulling a 50 by 60 foot banner around the region. It was very exhilarating, very, very cool. And we had so many people on social media pick it up, and our website, that numbers spiked. Sorry, I can't get that video to you. So it's a huge opportunity for this region. It's a world-class brand, the Rolling Stones. It's a cultural experience like never before here. Waterloo is more than technology. It's a great slogan. I created it for the Canadian National Exhibition at one point, the C&E more than the Midway. And it reinforced, in this case, technology, but that we're more than that. And it's a feel-good opportunity as we come out of this pandemic, and it will put us on a much larger map generally and be a huge benefit economically, in terms of benefits economically to the hospitality sector and so on. So full page ads in the Toronto Star are running. It's opening. It's coming up very quickly. And I just appealed to the region to support this show. it will come back to you in terms of tax, in terms of tourist dollars and so on. There's many, many ways that you can support it. There was a written report that I submitted the last time I presented to the council. I've got people coming from all across the country for the museum conference. We need ION passes. There's all sorts of different ways that you can help support, and I hope that you will help support it and take advantage of this incredible show. I hope I'm under 5 minutes. Thank you.
Well, you didn't quite make the 5-minute mark, David, but that's okay. Thanks very much for the presentation. And if I can get my screen back, if you could, there we go. Yeah. Councillor Brbanovic.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to thank David for A, coming in, B, for the vision around this exciting show and the efforts that are being made, certainly to include many of the resources and acknowledge many of the urban resources within our region to really help revive tourism, which is probably one of the hardest hitting sectors, hardest hit sectors within the region, and obviously with a vision that's captivated our federal and provincial partners, which has been fantastic. So that's my comment, and then I guess I do have a question of staff, Mr. Chair, before I perhaps make a motion.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Brbanovic. I've got no one else speaking. I did want to speak to it, but go ahead.
Okay, so just I guess my question of staff would be, maybe it's of Mr. Lochner, would the sort of the appropriate venue be for us to direct this to Mr. Regeer's team to take a look and to bring something back for us to consider, probably next week at council as part of this?
Mr. Lochner? Mr. Regeer is here as well.
Mr. Chair, thanks for the question, and Mr. Regeer may jump in. We had proposed, we have a number of requests, including grants that currently exist, so we had proposed to bring that back through the budget process. If council wants us to bring this back as a discrete item, we're at your direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously because of the timing of this event, we would need to look at it sooner rather than later, because it's not something that's happening a year from now or even next spring or summer. It's something that is going to be happening much sooner, and so I would think we would need to consider it sooner. We're going to maximize the benefit for the three, certainly the three cities and the many partners that are part of this. So I guess my question is, I don't know how much time staff would need. Is it something that could come back at council, or would you need until the next cycle?
Mr. Regeer?
Yeah, through you, Chair Galloway, I would suggest that we take it through to the next cycle of council. I think it'd be we'd have inadequate time to work through the details on this and give council a solid recommendation by council meeting. Helen Chameri Russell is on the call as well, and she would lead the project on our behalf.
Okay, so at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair, I'd be prepared to move referral to staff and for it to come back at our October committee meeting.
Would you be just satisfied with the direction, Councillor Brbanovic?
Yeah, that's fine too. If just trying to formalize it, but direction's fine.
Yeah, I think that's quite appropriate to provide direction in that regard. Councillor Jawat.
Looking for Helen Chameri Russell, just because we have had quite a, as Bruce had spoken to, we have quite a few requests there, and we're trying to be reasonable. Also recognizing there's been some funds that have been put forward for economic recovery, and we know the tourism district has been hit. So I'd like to see, us have at least a conversation about it for sure, and inclusive of, some of the changes we made post-COVID with regard to equitable distribution of funds in these regards. That's all.
Good. Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Galloway. I noticed, and I would imagine that when staff come back, I think there was a request for some space, so I would hope that there would sort of be a quantification in a response to all of that list. And I guess through you to the delegation, David, it's very exciting, and I did see the banners flying above Kitchener's advertising it. We're a regional government, and I understand that the hospitality sector has taken it on the chin. I know you're a fabulous promoter. Is it possible for you to work with staff to talk about how this would benefit Tapestry Hall, Cambridge Mill, the hotels in Cambridge, as well as obviously Kitchener, Waterloo? I think that pan-regional perspective, which I'm sure you have, would be really helpful when we talk about investing in this world-class event.
Yes, if I may, we have been speaking with the BIA in Cambridge, and I mentioned the Fashion History Museum, but we're working with hotels right across the region. They're building hotel and restaurant and packages with tickets, combination of meals, and so on and so forth. So we are working right across the region to build hotel packages.
And I didn't mean to leave the townships out, guys. It's just there's Langdon Hall, there's lots of accommodation. And I think getting that pan-regional perspective is really helpful when being considered by regional councils. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McGarry.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I wanted to also add my sincere thanks to David and his team for getting us to this time. I'm very excited about seeing this come forward, not only just personally, but I think it'll be an incredible boost to the tourism sector, not just in the area municipalities, but the region as a whole and other areas as well. So looking forward to this success. So my question would be, you've sort of partly answered it in looking at hotel packages, for instance, across all the municipalities in the region. When it comes to some of the other needs, such as space to store things, those kinds of things, do you have kind of a checklist of things that have gone out to the area municipalities, not just the region?
Without going into too much detail, we have worked with both the City of Kitchener and Waterloo and Helen at the region, seeking 3,500 square feet of indoor space. We have to store these crates. It's going to be 12 53-foot trailers showing up at our front door, and we need to store the crates for 3 or 4 months. So it's 3,500 secured space, indoor, heated if possible. I mean, that represents $20,000+ to us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McGarry. David, thanks very much for the presentation. It certainly is a very exciting event that's being planned, and I'm certainly impressed with the pan-region approach that's been taken in terms of all the different involvements from one end of the community to the other, and then of course beyond when you go to the Alma Combo. But it has the potential to really have a tremendous economic impact on our communities. So if everybody is in agreement, we'll provide direction to staff to respond to the request and how the region could be involved in the project. David has itemized a number of ways, and we would expect to have that during our next cycle, which is October 12, something like that. So that's our next cycle. And if everybody's in concurrence with that, we'll thank you again, David, for the presentation.
If I could just say, I hope you all practice up your air guitar Rolling Stones song for a competition down in Cambridge. It's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see all of you playing your favorite Stones song.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you all. Have fun.
I do my air guitar in the shower, so I don't know. Oh, I don't think you want to see that. Okay. So the next delegation is Mary Jane Patterson from Reep, Green Solutions, and there she is, dressed in green.
Good morning, everyone. You can hear me?
We can, Mary Jane.
Excellent. I'm about to share my screen. How's it looking?
We have it.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share our impact report from the last fiscal year. This is the first presentation, and we are aligning our release to the public with this day for presenting to you. And mayors, we will be coming to all of your council. It will be either me or our Associate Director, Patrick Gilbride, in the next few weeks. A year ago, we adopted this 10-year impact goal that guides our work now, striving to support 10,000 meaningful actions in our community. And I want to show you that we're almost 10% of the way after 1 year towards achieving this. And we have twice as many supportive actions. And to give you an idea of what we mean there, attending a tree workshop would be a supportive action, something that people do as part of their sustainability journey. Planting a tree is making change. That's a meaningful action. And here's some examples of those. This past fiscal year, we sold almost 3,000 plants, pollinators, in our Bloom Box, and also helped support the planting of trees and shrubs. And those provide habitat and anchor the soil, an important part of this stormwater management. As you know, we provide support for homeowners both outside and inside the home. And I just want to say a bit in particular about the work we do on behalf of the Region of Waterloo Water Services, providing home water reviews. In the past year, during those reviews, we were able to install on the spot 216 fixture upgrades, and they start saving water right away. So those are meaningful actions. Well, this was a big part of last year, and I know you all remember it. This council unanimously supported Transform WR, which is a partnership co-led by Sustainable Waterloo Region and Reep Green Solutions, and really in very tight partnership with all of our municipalities. And our goal, all of us, is to transform the ways we move, consume, build, and relate to each other. And much of our work at Reep aligns directly with these goals. And here is an example. Our home energy work supports people in making their homes more energy efficient. This past year, the federal government launched the Greener Homes Initiative in the middle of a lockdown. That was quite an experience. We already have people on a waiting list who we'd had to cancel for the lockdown. So we are catching up, but very happy to be in that position and to see the increased interest in people when they have support in making their homes more energy efficient. Project Neutral came to an end of its 2-year time period that was funded by you, Region of Waterloo. And I'm happy to report that in that second year, even during COVID, we had 846 people log on to understand better their own household carbon footprint. And those represent more than just those people because of all the people living in those households. Most of them don't talk back to us too much, but we had 111 actions that they took as a result of participating that were reported back, and we were glad to see that. We were able to have one in-person workshop, and the rest had to move online, and it was so interesting to see how many more people participated, especially from beyond our community. So I think that'll make a change for us going forward. Now, you will be shocked to know that I happen to have a mason jar handy for this meeting, and that our Zero Waste Challenge is coming up. October 16th is the launch of the 7-day challenge, And when I think about how waste management is a regional initiative, I think how cool it would be if all the regional councillors participated and posted on social media what you're learning as you take a look at what goes in that jar that can't be composted or recycled, because that's really what it's all about. I personally have a Miss Vicky's challenge that became very clear last year. Just a note to say that the diversity of programs here really shows, I think, a kind of balance between climate adaptation and mitigation. And then there's more in the impact report that you'll see. We're looking forward to 3 cool things that fill a need and get us excited. We're going to be working on arborist care for mature trees, building a program with all our municipalities and utilities for home energy upgrades, and Project Neutral moves into the kids cutting carbon phase. I'm going to tell you more about that if you ask me, because I see I'm beyond my 5 minutes. And I'm going to just end with a very big thank you to you, regional councillors, for supporting all this work. It really wouldn't be possible without your support. And a special thank you to Kate Daly, Kate Hagerman, Dan Mahar, and all the staff we get to work with on a regular basis. It really is an honor to work together on this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, MJ. And I'll see if I get my screen back here. Chair Redmond.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Chair Galloway. And Mary Jane, it's always an inspiration to be in your company. And I think the horizontal impact and the opportunities in the environment are just countless. So I really do appreciate that last slide when you looked at all of the supporters. I think of FCM, I think of the federal government, but all of the local participants. You didn't highlight it specifically, but 2 years ago I bought bee gardens from Reep during the sort of the height of the pandemic, and I want you to know my kids that received them are still growing them and still welcoming bees, and as everybody knows, we are a bee region. I'm really glad I got my dibs in before Councillor Jaworski, who obviously made it in the slide, just to say that I've signed up for the 7-day challenge, and I would really hope that the rest of council does. It's very instructive. And Councillor Jaworski's never had to figure out what to do with a pair of run pantyhose, like where they go. And I put them in my jar, and he just told me I should have saved them till after the 7 days. So the throwdown is on, and I would hope that this would also extend to area municipal councils as well to participate.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jaworski, there you go. Challenge.
Well, you know, Chair Redmond, another thing you need to do now is change your toothbrush now. Last time you waited too late. You changed it during the week. You just don't do that. You have to prepare in advance for that week. And that's even going down to when you get your bananas, which I talked about last time, make sure you buy them without the sticker, and just remember that the code is 4011 when you're going through the self-checkout. You have to prepare for this thing if you want to do it right. If you want to have an empty jar at the end, which is next to impossible. I'm always tricked up by something, and I think that is what is the biggest learning experience from the Zero Waste Challenge is how much, no matter how hard you try, you still waste. And I think that's just so informative, and it is a fun challenge. I encourage everybody to participate. I've signed up too, but you have to prepare in advance. There's no doubt about it. Thank you, Mary Jane.
Councillor
Thank you.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you. I also signed up, and Dave, if you have any cheat sheets, I would love to get them. And same with you, Chair Redmond. Come on, guys, join in. If I'm going to go down, I want you to take you down with me.
Okay. So what size mason jar is it? How many gallons?
Well, we are open to any interpretation, and having been asked if we provide marital counseling, so it's okay to have a separate jar even for different people in the house. It's just about taking a look, and the strategic thinking ahead approach is good, because maybe we can continue that all year long and thinking about how not to get stuff in that jar.
Correct. Okay. Well, thanks again, Mary Jane, for all the work that Reep does, and the Transform WR in collaboration with Sustainable Waterloo Region. The leveraging that we get through those organizations is really remarkable, and I'm not sure every community in Ontario or Canada is blessed to have those kinds of organizations like Reep and Sustainable Waterloo Region to really push forward the climate action agenda. So we're very blessed and to have people like yourself doing that. So another great year for Reep Green Solutions, and I'm sure we're going to continue to see a lot of great things from the organization. So thanks for giving us the annual report once again, Mary Jane.
My pleasure. Bye all.
Okay, bye now. Okay, so we have finished our 3 delegations. The fourth delegation we're going to hear at 12:30. So we have a few minutes. Maybe we can do the consent agenda before our lunch break at 12 noon. I'll ask if there's anything on the consent agenda that anybody would like to remove or would like to speak to prior to the motion to accept the consent agenda. Councillor Schatz.
Just really quick, the Breslau on-demand transit pilot, really excited to see that. When I looked at the routes, the diagram didn't connect into any of the existing transit, but the report indicated that it would. I'm assuming that it will actually connect with a GRT route.
Mr. Zink?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor, that's entirely correct. The Breslau service will connect into likely Route 204, just across the river into in the area of Victoria and Lackner.
Perfect. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair Galloway. Very quickly, with regard to the West Montrose Bridge, there's reference made to a camera for monitoring. Is this a live monitored thing, or is this just something with tape in case of incidents? And if it's a live monitoring, who is responsible for that? Is that GRT?
Mr. Schmidt.
Through you, Councillor Galloway, I don't believe it would be live monitoring. I think it would be tape. We will definitely be looking at every possible way we could keep larger vehicles off it even after the upgrades are done, but I don't believe we would have live monitoring. If I'm incorrect, I think Mr. Bauer or Mr. Vandekeer on.
They're on the call.
Neither of them are turning on their video, so I'm assuming I'm correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Erb.
I also had a question on the Breslau on-demand transit, and I'm just trying to get the document open. But as I remember reading it, this is a fully pilot project funded by Metrolinx. At the end of that project, how do the negotiations take place? How this gets transferred over to the region, if it does at all, after the pilot?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so that's a good question. The transfer of the Metrolinx funding, or the ending of the funding and moving it into a regional service, is what will have to be discussed through with the township and within the region itself, depending on the success of the pilot, whether it's something that we need to continue or the FORB needs to continue as well. It may be suitable, it may be different that we need to do. So there is no extension contemplated here or recommended here. We need to learn, find out how the service goes, and then determine the next steps, what form it would take. Traditionally over the life of Bus Plus services, what we've done is move them into regional services after these funding opportunities and these pilots take place. So that's the most logical solution.
And the buses the vehicles that we would use for this pilot, they're a smaller vehicle, which I'm assuming Metrolinx will be responsible for supplying.
At this point, we're looking at an RFP for this type of service or an extension of our current arrangement with one of the contractors that we use for Bus Plus services. So that would be a for-fee service that we would enter into, so that basically the pilot can run without any attachment at the end.
Okay. Well, I think this is an exciting opportunity, and looking forward to it happening. Thank you.
Okay, no further. Anybody else have any items they wish to discuss? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councillor Foxton, Councillor McGarry, and if you would vote using your icons for the acceptance of the consent agenda. And that is carried. Looking at the clock, we are very, very close to 12 o'clock. I don't think I'm going to start the regular agenda at this time. We do have our the item on the regional bunker for 12:30 with the delegation. So I'm going to call the lunch break now and ask you to be back at 12:30. See you then. Thank you. Start with we do have a delegation. Is our delegation in the waiting room? He is, okay. So we're going to start, however, with Helen Chamari Russell to provide us an introduction to the report on the regional bunker. Welcome, Helen.
Hi, thanks very much, Chair. So this is a report that we're bringing forward. We're bringing in response to the direction to staff that was provided about 3 months ago. So this is directing staff to go a consultation to find out what the community thinks we could be doing with the bunker. So that is this report. That's what's being brought forward.
And if I could just interrupt you for a moment, Helen, is Councillor Harris with us? He made a specific request.
I am here, Councillor Galloway.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Helen.
I was pretty much finished.
Oh, okay. I like that, Helen. Okay, so we have the report. It is as a result of direction from council previously, and staff have reported back. So I'm going to now go to the delegation before we get into any kind of discussion or debate. And we have Preston Ahrens. Welcome, Preston. There you are. Welcome, and you have 5 minutes to present.
Well, thank you, Honorable Chair and members of the Council, for the opportunity to come and speak with you today. My name is Dr. Preston Ahrens. I have a PhD in history, and now I work not only as a historian, but as an archaeological fields technician and an instructor at the University of Waterloo. But today I'm here in my capacity as a member of the Region of Waterloo's Heritage Planning Advisory Committee. And my purpose here today is to bring attention to agenda item 9.1, the regional bunker at 3571 King Street East, and particularly the community engagement and next steps. Now, as you discuss those next steps today, the Heritage Planning and Advisory Council wishes Council to know their January 14th recommendation to the Regional Commissioner of Planning, Development and Legislative Services, that the structure be conserved and adaptively reused. Now, this recommendation was based on the Ontario Heritage Act, the Regional Official Plan, and most particularly a heritage impact assessment about the site itself. And the advisory committee wishes to reiterate this recommendation based on new information discussed at our recent meeting on September 9th, and which is the topic of your agenda today, namely the results of community engagement efforts. Now, I have two pieces of community engagement that I wanted to reiterate for your consideration. The first was ongoing consultations with the Laurier Centre for Canadian Studies. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak with the center's director, Dr. Kevin Spooner, who has in turn been speaking with other historians of the Cold War in Canada and experts on especially civil defense during that era. In particular, he's spoken with Dr. Andrew Birch, who's an expert on both civil defense and works with the Canadian War Museum, as well as Dr. Sarah Matthews, who's an expert on the Diefenbunker and bunker building in Canada more generally. Now, all three of these individuals expressed their surprise and their excitement at the existence of this structure and reiterated its uniqueness within the context of both the region and the country. To their knowledge, as experts in the field, it is the only municipal structure of this type that is known in the country. Both Drs. Birch and Matthews expressed their excitement in wanting to follow this project moving forward, as well as their willingness to share the results of their own research and in terms of contextualizing the local project. More concretely, if you'll excuse the pun, Dr. Spooner reiterated that he is already working with regional staff to conduct background research on the history of the bunker, as well as create a finding aid in the regional archives. And he wished to convey his commitment to working with the region moving forward, particularly in terms of research support and assisting with grant applications, depending on what next steps are decided upon. Now, the other piece of public engagement that you have before you today is the results of the community survey that was carried out in July of this year. Now, you have both the complete results of that survey in your appendices for today, as well as a summary in the agenda itself. So I won't dwell on this too much, but I did want to stress that the community members really see the potential in this site and that they overwhelmingly support it being adaptively reused for a public use and for public access. And so based on those consultations, the takeaways I wanted to leave were that this is truly a unique structure. Historians, academics, heritage consultants, as well as heritage enthusiasts are all getting excited about this project and are eager to see what happens next, and that the community members see largely the potential for this structure. Now, they did have varying views, but most of them spoke of its potential for tourism and especially as a public place that could be adaptively reused. And based on these recommendations, I wanted to reiterate the Heritage Planning and Advisories Committee that this structure be conserved and reused. And if I've been able to convey a bit of the excitement that various community stakeholders feel about this project, that I've been successful. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Preston. Any questions to the delegation? Councillor Jaworski, Clark, Shantz, Kiefer, to staff, or anybody to the delegation? Yes, Councillor Jaworski and Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for coming. And just I think there is certainly excitement, but there is concern, and I'll just share some of my concerns, and you can maybe address those, please. A good example is this was a facility that, to my knowledge, was actually never used, right? So a lot of heritage buildings that you can see that so and so slept here, so to speak, and nobody slept there, as far as I know, and it has been reused many times. It's in terrible shape, from the people of the time who. When it would have been used, probably had little idea it was there. Maybe, I don't know. As you said, the research hasn't been done. And so if I think about it, are we reflecting on history too much, that it was a building built to be functional and then never used and now is in terrible shape and takes millions of dollars to reuse? And I do have hopes for a reuse. I just question, I'd like you to fill me in on the concerns that I have.
Mr. Ahrens.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Jaworski. And in responding to this, I'm responding more as an academic and a member of the public, rather than in my capacity with HPAC, which is very much based on the regulations that guide the committee. But from my perspective here, this is, yes, it was never used, mercifully, for its original purpose, which was to house regional government, but it does tell quite a fascinating story about not only the region's history, but as well the wider Cold War. The Cold War was this, multiple decades that very much defined Canadian existence, and a lot of social fears, a lot of anxieties, but also a lot of infrastructure and planning went into that, as exemplified by a facility like this. In my discussion with Dr. Spooner yesterday, some of the themes that came up were very much the questions that this bunker poses. Why in Kitchener? Why were there no other municipal governments taking these steps? Was it an initiative as, perhaps an evacuation site for Toronto? Was it, did they see themselves as having a specific role in coordinating in the region? Were they just hoping to be extra prepared? There's all these questions about what was in the minds of the councillors that approved it and ultimately built it. And it also brings a lot of questions about coordination with other levels of government. Dr. Birch has emphasized in his discussions that there wasn't a lot of coordination between federal and officials, especially in Ontario and Quebec, about coordinating for civil defense purposes. But clearly the blueprints and the idea and the coordination for this bunker had some outside input. And that's, again, back to the point of conducting the research and finding out more. So it raises interesting questions about how the various levels of government cooperated and why Kitchener and how they were able to pull it off in spite of differing provincial perspectives, different levels of government, and different perspectives about how to handle civil defense. So from that perspective, it raises a lot of questions about the community, the purpose, the ideas behind it, as well as a bit of a legacy to the Cold War. Many of the installations of the Cold War were notably mundane and very utilitarian, but also it was a multi-decade defining period in Canadian history that is much less remembered, aside from plaques about the Korean War, for example, that are appended to our cenotaphs. But otherwise, this defining period really doesn't have a lot of memory within the Canadian public. So I think there's a lot of interesting discussion and a lot of interesting questions that the bunker raises, especially as this example of Cold War planning and architecture that really not only raises questions, but also brings up a lot of history and stories, as it's already doing with the research into the regional archives. And I think it can be useful in that regard, especially for a tourism and regional history perspective.
That is very helpful commentary. Thank you, Dr. Ahrens.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. I'm also a member of the Heritage Planning Advisory Committee, and I had intended to speak to this, but Dr. Ahrens did it far better than I could. So thank you very much for that. The one thing I just want to add for Council's information and the information of anyone who may be listening in is that the bunker has now become part of our Doors Open Waterloo Region virtual tour. And you can see a YouTube video on it that's been posted in the last week or so, and I'll send the link.
Okay, thanks. So I do want to deal with the delegation and get on with the discussion. Councillor Kiefer, did you have a question of the delegation?
Oh, it was for staff, thanks.
Councillor Jowett? Sorry, Helen, I can't hear you. Staff?
Sorry about that. Yeah, we'll wait to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor McGarry?
Thank you. And through you to the delegation, Dr. Ahrens, I found your presentation and the information quite helpful. In your estimation, is this particular bunker worth saving and preserving, no matter what the use is in the future, in order to help to tell a story in our community that hasn't really been told, especially through bricks and mortar type of things that are left from that time period?
In my estimation, it is worth it for that purpose. There are very few, I guess, memorials to that era, and especially if it can be used, no matter the purpose, as a community space that can be passively interpreted and provide that information. Many of the buildings of that era that are public in nature were, again, very utilitarian, and for that reason have not survived architecturally quite as well as we might have liked. But this one did have a purpose-built function, and even though it wasn't used for that function, it does tell us a lot about Canadian society and Canadian history. And so I think in terms of, no matter how it is used ultimately, having that passive interpretation and having that bricks and mortar example of this period in the region's history is particularly useful, especially given the uniqueness of this structure within the country.
And a follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to connect with any other buildings. I know you said that there was maybe no other building of this particular type for this use, but are there other examples of monuments or buildings in Canada that represent this era that are still intact?
To the best of my knowledge, there are various facilities that were not the same kind of standalone structures. For public buildings, this would be such reinforced basements, communication stations, things like this, that were incorporated into existing public buildings. Now, my knowledge does not extend to military facilities because they are fairly furtive about sharing that information. In terms of other monuments to that era, there are, of course, the various radar lines, the Dew line, the Pine Tree line, these radar stations that were developed during the Cold War as an early warning system. Much of their legacy has been in terms of impacts on Indigenous communities and environmental cleanup. So not quite the same public legacy, and many of them are in very remote areas. In terms of a civic defense expressly designed and purpose-built bunker, this one is quite unique. Any other surviving, at least to my knowledge, municipal facilities or provincial facilities were largely in the context of existing buildings.
Okay. Councillor Foxton, is it a question of the delegation?
Yes, it is, sir.
Go ahead.
Through the chair.
I have a question as well. You go ahead.
So reading through the table, very few people want it as a museum, but 342, but a lot of people want to use it for other things. And I think that would come down to the biggest debate of all. And if we do that, sir, do you not feel that it loses its historical value when it becomes a restaurant or museum or whatever? I don't know whether it maintains the same type of value. And is this the best place to allow the public to go? There's little parking. I believe that bridge is going to be done soon too, Barry. I'm not positive though. So is this the best place to showcase this? I actually was on council when this was opened. I am that old. And at that time, I was told that most people will never see it. It was only for top level politicians only. I'm not sure why politicians over mathematicians and engineers and stuff like that, but that's another story. So I fear that if we spent the dollars and did it, we would create something that would be not as accessible as we want for the public. And I would worry that we'd have a hard time maintaining the image. But, and you're saying what exactly, when you say maintain it, you're saying as a museum? Is that what you're asking?
And this echoes the adaptive reuse aspect of HPAC's recommendations. What I would see is using it for other community purposes, not necessarily a museum, but some kind of collaborative space. And as you see in the feedback, many of those functions can coexist. Speaking to the historic value, we often reuse buildings as a society, sometimes more effectively than others. But many of the heritage buildings that we have in our region have been reused in some other purpose. And the record of reusing and modifying heritage buildings is about preserving the heritage character of those buildings while using them and continuing to maintain them on a functional basis. Where I see this going is maintaining the integrity of the original building, which is an underground structure. There's the staircase down, which is quite iconic, the escape hatch, these sorts of things, which can evoke the original purpose of the building, just as in other buildings, a facade or a certain layout can do. So I don't see these as being mutually exclusive. It doesn't have to be a museum to evoke this era and to evoke the heritage and the history of that particular site. And then another point which came to mind there is that, yes, there is limited parking potential for that area, but there is also quite a lot of, you'll see in the feedback, calls for using it as a public facility for the waterfront trails and the water access. And I think we shouldn't undersell the region's efforts and capabilities.
Oops, he froze.
Flow of people coming through who aren't necessarily driving to the site, but are accessing it from parklands or from the other sorts of infrastructure that the region has been so exemplary in providing over the last number of years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foxton. I have a question, Preston. In the event that council decides to demolish this building, do you see any any way of continuing the legacy of the building in terms of, when other buildings are demolished, sometimes the municipality will require it to be videographed and, to be digitally documented. In this particular case, there was a suggestion the last time we talked about maybe retaining an element or two of the building, particularly the staircase. I mean, there's nothing much to this building to retain if you're going to demolish it, and then have interpretive signage and a display that is kept in posterity, so to speak, to chronicle this particular event. I know that you're not in favor of demolition, but in the event, do you see of demolition being the decision? Do you see any value in that, from your perspective? What you may not be able to speak on behalf of HPAC in that regard, but from your own opinion.
From my own perspective, yes, I see an immense amount of value in that, in part because of the uniqueness of this structure. As I mentioned, even some of the nation's experts on civil defense in Canada and that history were not aware of this structure or any others that are like it. And for those questions that it poses about Canadian history, it is very much unique. And there are examples in the Heritage Impact Assessment of ways in which buildings can be commemorated. They provide some examples in site interpretation, even in the event of demolition or ruins, kind of tracing outlines, digital displays, and so forth. And so from my perspective, it would definitely be worthwhile to chronicle and document the building, and to perhaps tie that in with the work of the Laurier Centre on Canadian Studies and the research they're doing for the region, to preserve it as much as possible, even if in spirit, in the event of a demolition.
Okay, thanks very much, Preston. I don't think we have any more questions. So we'll now turn to the members of council who wanted to ask questions of staff, and Councillor Kiefer.
Well, thank you, Chair Galloway, and thank you to Dr. Ahrens. I do love his first name, by the way. My question, or one of my questions is, when this was originally built, was it not Kitchener owned, and when did the region take it over? Like, can somebody give me that information?
I don't think Kitchener built this, so anyways.
Who built it? The region?
Yep.
Okay, and can you give me the time frame of that?
Helen, do you have the chronology?
Sure. So back in about 1966-ish, the land itself was purchased by the county at the time from the city of Kitchener. So for $1, the region, what's region today, purchased the land, and then the county with area municipalities, etc., built this structure for regional continuity, governance continuity.
County isn't region, Helen. The region was formed in 73.
That's right. So it was the
county of Waterloo that built it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the county of Waterloo that built it?
That's right.
That's right.
Okay, so that's one clarification. And the other thing is, in the report, it talked about repurposing of buildings within the region, and it gave some good examples. But are there any Cambridge examples? You know, Helen?
Sure. McDougall Cottage is one of those. So it's a residential building that was rehabilitated and refurbished, and is now a historic site that's used for tourism and education.
Okay, and just a final comment. I'm having trouble in terms of saying we're going to save the building, but I do agree with Dr. Ahrens and several others on regional council that something needs to be done in terms of that this can be purposed for reuse in a public way somehow, or documented through the university. But at this point in time, I'm not feeling that the building should be saved. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Councillor Jowett?
Can you hear me okay, Chair Galloway?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So when I look at these responses, I see accessibility to the spot as a bit of a challenge to some of the ideas, unfortunately. And I don't think that's anybody's fault, because it's just in a bit of an odd space.
we already have the two museums, but I take note of the fact that 142 said do nothing. And from what I understand, there was no option to choose demolish. So if you take the 217 and the 142 and add them together, with 360 people in the survey that really don't see a need for its importance or relevance on this level. So I'm not saying it's not an important historically, and we have the ways now of digital memorabilia, but again, access and then the aesthetic value of the building itself. So to me, rather than put this on the taxpayers, especially post-COVID financial recovery, I'm looking at maybe an option to gift it to GRCA to make it something that can be accessible for our residents to make use of it as a park space. But yeah, I'd be looking for another motion on this. I just don't see the value in the building, and any historical value can be saved from a digital perspective. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jowett. Councillor Harris.
Forgive me, I am in a bit of a bad area here, so hopefully it gets through. But I would echo Councillor Jowett's sentiments. I'm not going to ask too many. I don't think I'm going to have any questions. I'll just reiterate what I said at the last meeting, that this is something that was built for its time. It never was used. It's very expensive thing now to rehabilitate for little to no use. I know that staff did a consultation. We didn't add the demolition or demolish option, and yet overwhelmingly 200 plus people came forward with that suggestion. And so, at a time when funds are so scarce, we're facing, significant potential tax increases this year. We have people still laid off in our community after COVID. These tax dollars are better spent in other areas of affordable housing. So many needs here in our community. It would be a shame and an utter waste of money to put one more dollar into this facility, other than to just demolish it and be done with it. Use it as parkland space. There isn't a whole lot of uses that can be made here. Not only the cost to get rid of the asbestos, but then the $5+ million, which we know will always be on the low side, and then the regular maintenance annually to operate it is a building we just do not need in the region. And I'm not going to go on from there, other than I would second a motion if Councillor Jowett is suggesting that we add a second or third option, and that's to just proceed with the status quo of demolishing it and moving on. And I would suggest that if this is a budget conversation as well. If we're using the tax stabilization fund to fund, these unnecessary repairs and further expansion, it should be a broader budget discussion. However, if hopefully the majority of my colleagues decide that a third option is the best option to just, demolish, then let's be done with it, move on, and go forward. So I don't know if I need to move a motion or second a motion that perhaps Councillor Jowett's already talked about. I would do that. I hope Council supports this, especially during these times. We cannot afford to waste precious tax dollars on such a vanity project.
Okay, we don't have any motion on the floor yet. I want to get through some questions yet. Then I'll ask Councillor Jowett if she wants to proceed in any particular manner. Councillor Foxton and I have a question as well.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify. I misunderstood the dates because I was not on council in the 60s.
Yes,
I think I was like 10 years old.
You weren't
I think
even
it's when I
born.
came on council, there was a big talk about the bunker. It just got it going and filled it up. Another thing about using it as a facility, I have a really hard time with safety. In an underground bunker with that many rooms and trying to make sure people get out and everybody's out. It would take a tremendous amount of staff just to make sure on the safety issues and also the accessibility issues and a bunch of others. I am for creating the record, doing what we can to preserve things through our museum, and demolishing. With the GRCA, we could add that in as a caption, should the GRCA wish to take it on. I'm not sure they would, because it would be a financial cost to them as well.
Okay. Questions of staff, Councillor Nowak? I'm still at questions of staff. I'm trying to stay out of the debate right now.
Yeah, no question to staff, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just
Councilor.
curious, through all this, have staff been in touch with any potential renters or potential, is there any interest from any groups out there that may want to get involved in this project? Oftentimes, you know, they, if there is a specific group, they may want to come in and do the retrofitting themselves to suit their own particular needs, and maybe that would cut the cost a little bit too. I'm just wondering if there's been any formal discussion with any group whatsoever, whether it be Indigenous or whoever.
Helen.
Right. So through you, Chair, that we haven't had any formal discussions with any groups at this time. We were sent away to find out possible uses. There certainly was a lot of curiosity and desire to have those more formal conversations. But as we didn't know whether this was actually an asset that could be on the table to be offered, we haven't had those conversations yet. No, not formally.
Okay, Councilor Nowak.
Well, I just think it would make my decision a lot easier if I knew that there were in fact some interest in maintaining this building in one way or another, and so I'm leaning towards maintaining it, but I would like to know that there is some prospective uses that you know, that's quantified. Thanks.
Councilor Jaworski, questions of staff?
Yes, and thank you very much, Helen, and wonderful Doors Open Waterloo Region video. I had a chance to view it and see your commentary. One thing I noted in there is that you talked about the how it was actually a buried building. It was covered with soil. And normally when we think about heritage, we think about architectural significance, but a building that's buried, obviously, that doesn't come into play. So maybe talk about the difference between architectural significance and heritage significance, because I think that's where we lie today in that, because I don't think there is architecture associated with it, so to speak.
Sure. So through the chair, this is actually an interesting example of, even though it was buried, that's part of its architectural interest, is that it was actually built into the ground. It was designed by the same people who designed the CN Tower. So there actually is architectural significance. The more we dig into the history of this building and talk to people who are very well connected and extremely knowledgeable in the defense history of the community and of Canada, this is a bit of an anomaly that folks weren't terribly aware of. But normally in the heritage community, not knowing that something exists or not being able to see something doesn't generally devalue its heritage significance. So uncovering a Roman villa, for example, will still have that historical significance, even though nobody knew that it was there. So we're kind of in that zone of, this was built for a purpose. It has an interesting story to tell. Architecturally, even though it was buried, part of the buriedness is part of its interest, even though we wouldn't have been able to see it. It is designed by award-winning designers, has a history of the community coming together to create it. And when you go inside it, it does have architectural features that are interesting, and again, tell a very interesting story about the history of this region and the history of that time.
And then, Helen, can those, the interesting stuff inside, can that be preserved, do you believe, or?
Through the chair, I think passive interpretation is very achievable in this space, that because of the way it currently exists, it's very utilitarian. It can be used for almost anything. It's basically a large room with a few small rooms, a hallway. It can be accessed at grade from the side that faces down to the river. It's actually an incredibly flexible structure for what it actually is. But the utilitarianism, this sort of concreteness of it, certainly will evoke certain feelings of the time period. It can be restored and rehabilitated to be a hospitable space, but will still retain very much a sense of the era.
Thank you, Helen.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Galloway. I too want to thank Helen and staff for coming forward with this sort of, I think, we feel like we're peeling back an onion that we didn't know was in the bottom of our grocery basket. Has anybody turned their mind, Helen, to what the cost would be to demolish? Has that been quantified at all?
So through the chair, yes, we did have original estimations that came through. So I think the original estimation was somewhere around 400,000. That has gone up partially because of the historic impact assessment, which said that certain things would have to be in place, but general costs go up as well. So as my understanding is that it's a little bit more than that at the moment, our estimation for how much it would cost. But we would have to apply for permits, and I'm not quite sure how that process would unfold right now.
I appreciate that, and then I don't know the specifically. That was, I mean, it's part of the discussion, but not maybe what we asked you to do. And I guess I would just remind everyone, and Helen, you may be able to quantify. Not doing anything will actually contribute to the deterioration of this, correct? Of this facility, of this site.
Yes, that's correct. So if we don't, it was built to have a waterproof membrane and be buried, and then it would be pretty much safe. At the moment, it's constantly exposed to water, so it is starting to deteriorate. And if we don't do something, that deterioration will continue. Yes.
And I guess I'm also very interested in, and I did appreciate the fact that you said we haven't been in discussions with First Nations, but to me, this is an amazing site, and I don't know how or if we could integrate the bunker, but the thought that this might be able to be used for education and cultural practices for Indigenous people really appeals to me. I actually have never been in the bunker, but I have a daughter that rowed on the Grand River as part of the rowing team, and that's where they stored the boats. So she had been in there, although I think it's probably been about 15 years. So I think we have to move forward cautiously, and I appreciate some of my colleagues' comments. I wouldn't want to even see us at this juncture give it away, even in partnership to the GRCA, when I think this is a huge asset that we need to be careful about how we handle. So thank you. Councillor McGarry, questions of staff?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. And I did want to start off with a comment that I've been part of the heritage community as long as I've been an adult, which is more than 10 years. And what I've noted is that on the various heritage conferences that I attended, those that are planning this kind of a conference generally tend to find unique spaces in order to visit, not only themselves, but for the community that they're trying to manage. And at one time, and may still be part of it, that the heritage component of our tourism sector is one of the fastest growing sectors in our tourism community. And I can see great value of offering spaces like this as a community space, potentially meeting rooms, in order to host some of the visitors that we have in our community that want to see very unique heritage features. And it doesn't necessarily need to be just built features, cultural as well. And we see that when we are coming into the region, for instance, and click on a map, we can find those various points of interest. And I can see the value of having a feature like this in our community. Certainly through the comments from the brief consultation that was done already, I was truly amazed at the number of different uses that community members that wanted to see this structure retained came up with. And like Chair Redmond, I can see great value in interpreting the building passively, but to be able to put it towards some of the needs that we have in our community now. More Indigenous spaces, more community spaces, where you can sort of do that interpretation from history as well as for the future. So I guess my question to you, Helen, would be, could this be a revenue generating building that could really take advantage of some of not only our heritage tourism, but also interpret this space and make it a multicultural community space that could be of value to our entire community?
Yeah, so through the chair, I think that's certainly the conversations that we're having based on the feedback that we got from the community. So being able to integrate green technology will hopefully make this cost neutral as far as the actual use of the space. The staffing of the space, we're estimating at about $200,000. At the moment, our museum spaces, for example, generate about $100,000 in rental revenue, but that's sort of a side business for the museums. If it was the whole business, one would hope that this could operate pretty close to cost neutral. And yes, the different types of offerings and people who could be able to come through and use the space. Absolutely, that's certainly the vision that we pulled out of the response.
Okay, Councillor Nowak, questions of staff. We're not in debate.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering if, and maybe I see Craig Dyer is on, and then Thomas Smith, maybe one of those can answer this question. Would there be any way possible to somehow put out a request for proposals to the community to have the community maybe make a bid, or somebody make a bid on this property, come back with a design on what they may want to do? I'm not sure how you'd put that package together, but I'm just wondering if there's a possibility. I just like to see us reach out to the community. There might be somebody out there that's got a great idea and got some deep pockets that wants to do something with this to preserve it, and in which case it would be, I think, premature to just tear it down right away. That's my thought.
Mr. Dyer, do you have any, or Helen, do you have any response to that?
I could try, Mr. Chair, and maybe my response, maybe it's stating the obvious, but we're in council's hands. If council's direction here is to preserve the building and undertake some type of process, either in terms of engaging the community, in terms of putting out a design or use RFP, I think there's a number of different ways and approaches that we could take depending on the direction provided from council. So whichever way today's debate ends and council's decision next week, we'll take that guidance and report back as needed.
Well, if I may, through the chair, I haven't got a motion prepared because I wasn't sure exactly how something like that would be worded, but I would like to maybe help get some help with staff to come together with some sort of a motion that would see us reaching out to the community to see if in fact there is an individual, maybe an RFP or a group that we're interested in looking at this in another way other than just strictly demolishing.
Councillor Clark.
Not a question of staff. I'm getting my hand up for discussion.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I thought I had discussion, but I figured out how to make it into a question for you, Chair. So hopefully this is all right. I'll just start with a quick comment.
You're the one with the hydro board meeting.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to try to be really quick. We've gone through quite a bit on our council with historical bridges and knowing what to do with them and the cost to preserve them or tear them down or close them up, and it's difficult, right? It's a difficult conversation. I guess my question to staff is regarding heritage tourism or historical tourism. And Helen, I'm not sure if this is for you or for Rod, but are there any plans? Like, are we looking at these kinds of things in totality in terms of how we can create a different kind of tourism in the area, especially coming out of COVID? I mean, tourism was the hardest hit, I think, of most industries.
So through the chair, you're asking if we're developing a tourism strategy that includes a sort of heritage element. So the answer to that is yes, we are working with the Tourism Marketing Corporation, so Explore Waterloo Region, and there are various buckets that exist, and heritage is certainly one of them, and more assets to be able to pull together in that respect certainly will be lumped in the various destinations that are already in existence for tourism that's heritage related. And yes, there is a market for heritage tourism. We have a driving tour as well and things like that is very high demand for those things.
So something like this would fit into that sort of planning?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Urbanovic, questions of staff?
Yes, thanks, Chair Galloway. On the report and the recommendations, it talks about consulting with the city and the GRCA about reuse and so on. Has there been any conversation? And that, I'm looking at sort of everything that's happening in that area. Has there been any conversation with the city, with the Grand River Hospital, and or like some of the private businesses that are there? Like I look at Canoeing the Grand, to see whether or not some kind of partnerships could potentially be pursued as we continue to look at options for this facility.
Through the chair, so formal conversations, as I mentioned before, haven't been undertaken. We certainly have had conversations, very casual conversations, with park staff at the city, because this slice of regional property exists within a city of Kitchener Park. So those conversations are ongoing about, is there potential partnerships or initiatives that we could undertake together? But the answer to the hospital piece and the Canoeing the Grand piece, no, we haven't had any conversations with those businesses at this time. But could there be? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly, I guess, would suggest if we go forward with the staff recommendations in the report, that those be included as a formal part of the direction that's being undertaken, because I think there is some opportunities there. And just building on what Councillor Nowak said, I think there's also some opportunities there. If we did some sort of RFP where there may actually be interest, and I can think of some parties who have done interesting things with similar kind of properties in other municipalities, that there may be a fit here.
Okay, Councillor Armstrong, questions of staff?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember, what is the size of the property?
The chair, it's just over 5,000 square feet, so 5,000 or something like that.
The property or the building, Helen?
Oh, sorry. Did you mean the property itself?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so
correct.
Oh no, off the top of my head, it's just over an acre.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have a question or two as well. So when we discussed this the last time, I said I was unlikely to support retaining the building unless our operations department saw a use for it. So I may have missed it, but I didn't see anywhere in the report where the operations department commented on their potential use of the facility. So I was suggesting at the time, because of the proximity of this facility to our central operations yard and the new road that's being constructed that will be coming over that way, that this could be potentially a storage facility for the operations department. So was that pursued at all to see if they had a use for the facility?
So through the chair, we did have internal conversations. I don't think they were as targeted as that, as would we use this space for storage for construction projects, etc. So this report is fundamentally and primarily looking at the community uses that they were looking for, but I can leave it open to anybody else from operations who may want to provide feedback right now.
Charles, did you have a response to
that? Through you, Chair. I think my response is that as facilities, we tried to identify various regional uses, and it was determined that it would be more cost effective to provide those spaces at another location. They wouldn't have the same limitations as trying to use an underground storage facility within the riverbank to use as storage. The costs to do so would be higher than trying to build that storage location, for example, at the operations center through other sort of expansion.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had, and it really emanates from some of the discussion that we had in terms of the GRCA, an RFP, some other kind of partnership that some people may wish to want to pursue. So in the event that we were going to pursue any one of those options, does the remedial work need to take place? In other words, can we forego the $700,000 expense for a period of time? We asked the same question the last time that we discussed it. Can we forego that expense until we explore a few of those other options? The repairs have been necessary for some time. The deterioration is ongoing. So do we need to spend the money in order to pursue those options? Charles, that might be a question to you.
Yes, so through you, Chair. We could defer the costs or the repairs to the building. The result of that would be there is a higher risk of sort of more significant deterioration, potentially resulting in collapse of the building eventually. More likely, it would just be that the longer the work is deferred, the more expensive the repair costs become.
So when we discussed this the last time and we went forward with the work that was done in terms of surveying the community, it was thought, to take a few months, and it has taken a few months. But the answer to this question back then was that the building would not, get to that stage. So if we were to take another 3 to 6 months, let's say, and revisited this potentially in the winter or in the spring next year, will we be in a situation where we'll have wished that we had done the work earlier? Or, in that time frame, let's just say a 6-month time frame for the sake of argument, we're going to see a deterioration to a point beyond the ability to repair it. That might be a bit hypothetical, I suppose.
Yeah. And I'll try to answer. I think from my perspective, from a facilities perspective, the next steps of the project would be to move forward with design. So we would need to start spending some money on the design of the facility in order to facilitate consultation. So we'd need to present something to other agencies as, here's what we're proposing in the building in order to get formal comments back from the city, from the GRCA. And so while the repair work could be deferred, it would be more expensive. Already, just as an example, in order to minimize operations costs, we've had to close in some of the building to prevent vandals and people from getting in, accessing in the interior of the building. So there are costs to continuing to maintain and to keep the facility in the state that it's in today. But then, in order to be able to proceed with the work, there's also additional costs to work on a more sort of formal design for the building to be able to take those next steps in design. That would be based on the recommendation that we're making. The alternative of putting out an RFP or something is something that we haven't explored. I assume that that means to sell the land to somebody else to restore.
Not necessarily. It could take the form of a number of different options, but yeah, that might be one. But and the last question I have, Charles, is in order to comply with the motion in the staff report in section A to undertake the immediate repair work necessary, is that the $700,000?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So we have no motion on the floor. We have the motion in the staff report. We have had a number of other options or ideas discussed. And I'm going to open it up now for debate. And Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair Galloway. I'm happy to move that motion. Just a comment to some of my colleagues who are suffering from sticker shock, and I think we probably all did to some extent. I just want to draw people's attention to the section of the report that does state that there is federal funding available for rehabilitation of buildings of this sort, up to 80% of the cost. So when we're looking at the financial impact, we should bear that in mind. I do appreciate and anticipate the comments that there's only one taxpayer. And although that's true, I think failing to take advantage of programs like this does not, in fact, lower our taxes. It simply means some other community gets the benefit of them. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Clark is willing to move the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Urbanovic, you want to speak to it then, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Galloway, and I'd be pleased to second this. I am hoping we can just add a clause if it's friendly with the mover, that our direction, as indicated earlier, would also include consultation with the city, GRH, and other potential partners in the area who could potentially be play a role in this proposal. Originally, I'll be honest, I was mixed about seeing us go forward with this facility, but in light of the response from the community and some of the creative ideas that have come forward, I've really given this a lot of additional thought, and I think there is some real potential here of creating a facility that would not only recognize this important piece of our community's history and our country's history, for that matter, but also allow us to create another very interesting facility that the region has within its purview, and that would augment our tourist offerings, not only in the region, but specifically along the river's edge. And so I welcome the additional pursuit, and hope that we see us moving forward with this in the proposed direction.
Councillor Jowett.
Thank you, Chair Galloway. So I just want a point of clarification. So if we just fix the place up and look for tenders and look for partnerships or whatever else, it's 750,000. But if we demolish it, it's if I'm hearing properly, it could be about $500,000. Because, and I'm sure a lot of that's because of the asbestos, and that's never going to get cheaper. But have I got that right from a math perspective? Is that what you said, Helen?
Mr. Dyer.
Right?
Yes, that's correct. As we've set out in the report, the demolition costs are estimated at $475,000. The work that's part of the recommendation is estimated at approximately $700,000.
All right, thanks for the clarity.
Councillor Jaworski.
Well, I've kept an open mind on this one for ever since it came up, and certainly a dilapidated structure like this certainly didn't come to mind in making an investment. But as I put on not my personal hat, but my elected official hat, and I should have one on right now, you really see that we have advice from our Heritage Committee, we have advice from our top Heritage planner, and we've seen it before in our community where some people are personal owners of items of heritage value, and they let them deteriorate until there's nothing that can be left to do with them. And we face that as elected officials often, and we don't like it. And yet here we are, quote, caught holding the bag on a heritage site. And so for that reason, I will be supporting it, the motion to move forward. And it was really that self-reflection that aided me in this, plus the visioning and the great video that Elizabeth shared with Doors Open Waterloo Region. I think it is a future tourist attraction.
Councillor Erb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, like some other members of the council, have been back and forth in my own mind on the decision on this, but I'm prepared to support the recommendation. In hindsight, on so many historical pieces of architecture and buildings in our community, I think we sometimes rush into a decision based on not fully understanding the long-term value of maintaining them. And I'm not saying that in the long term we're going to maintain this, but I think at least we remedy the current situation, that it remains safe, and that I like some of the ideas that have been presented today for some other involvement in the community. And so I'm prepared to support the recommendation today.
Councillor Shantz.
Yeah, and again, I'll be quick. I support the recommendation. I think there are a number of heritage places around the region that some have been highlighted in the videos that were sent around, and others not so much. But once they're gone, they're gone. And the net difference on this one is $325,000, which is in our budget, not that big an amount. And I know that sounds a little bit flippant perhaps, but I think it's worth preserving and worth looking at, and then seeing if we can get some partners to bring it up to snuff and be able to celebrate it as part of our heritage.
Councillor McGarry.
Thank you. I will also be supporting the recommendation. I think very often people forget that there is a cost to demolition, and in this particular case, a significant one. And I think that the value of moving ahead to preserve and protect this particular heritage structure while we're communicating and in consultation with our community for adaptive reuse and interpretation could be the beginning of something that really does add to the list of heritage resources that we have in our community that are loved to be visited by many tourists that love the heritage resources. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Galloway. Just to underscore a point that's been made, that there is a cost in not doing something, and I do appreciate colleagues who suggested maybe this would be part of the budget process, but I am heartened to hear that staff say that there are other funds that we may be able to access at other levels of government. So I'll support this motion at this juncture because I think time is of the essence.
Okay, any other comments? I will not be supporting the recommendation. It's not that I don't want to preserve the building. I don't want to spend $700,000 now to find out that we don't have a partner, we don't have an RFP, we don't have nobody else to use it. I would prefer that we proceed with going, if people want to go ahead with the partnership ideal or the RFP idea, that we try to do that in an expeditious manner. I don't think the building is going to collapse. I think we were told that. And if that, that process does not turn up a suitable partner or organization that wants to use the facility, then we can make that decision to either demolish or proceed with the repairs. But it just seems to be a great risk at $4 to $4.5 million to restore the building to some usable function, as the report suggests, it's going to be a very difficult parameter in an RFP for an organization, a business, whoever that might be interested to climb that mountain of a $4 and $4.5 million investment to make some kind of a facility out of it, notwithstanding that there might be some grant money available, depending, of course, on the use. So I'm not willing to spend the $700,000 to do the repairs without knowing that that, in fact, is going to be a good investment. So if there's nobody else that is wanting to speak.
I do.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kiefer.
I just wanted to ask for a recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote. Okay. Jessica? So this is on the staff recommendation, in favor or opposed?
Is that with Barry's amendment?
The amendment, yeah, and I think if that's okay with you, Councillor Clark, the amendment that Councillor Urbanovic suggested would be included, okay? That's to consult with the City of Kitchener and whatever. Yeah, okay.
Chair Redmond? In favor. Councillor Armstrong?
Opposed?
Councillor Clark?
In favor?
Councillor Erb?
In favor.
Councillor Foxton?
Opposed.
Councillor Galloway?
Opposed?
Councillor Harris?
No, very opposed.
Councillor Jaworski?
In favor.
Councillor Jowett? Councillor Jowett?
Opposed? Can you hear me?
You said opposed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kiefer?
Opposed?
Councillor Rentz is absent. Councillor McGarry?
In favor.
Councillor Nowak?
In favor.
Councillor Shantz?
In favor.
Councillor Strickland is absent. And Councillor Bravanovich?
Sorry, in favor.
That's 8 in favor and 6 opposed, so that is carried.
That's carried. Okay, thank you. I suspect that might be subject to further debate at council next time around, but so be it. Okay, we'll move on then to the next item in the regular agenda. That's transit supportive strategy for Cambridge. And Kate Hagerman is available to respond to any questions. Kate, was there anything you wanted to highlight in that report or just respond to questions?
Sure, I can do a very brief update just to let folks know that this is the 10th and final year of the transit supportive strategy. Regional staff have always worked with Cambridge staff in terms of the recommendations for the fund. And this year, we have taken a bit of a different approach. In the past, the funds have gone more towards things like infrastructure improvements and marketing and promotion, studies and incentives. But this year, the majority of the funds are going towards the regional strategic investment in affordable housing fund, working towards facilitating affordable housing along the Stage 2 ION route. And so it's an exciting proposal. Really looking forward to the work.
Okay, thanks. Any questions to Ms. Hagerman? Seeing none then, the motion by, who wants to move the motion? Councillor Kiefer, Councillor McGarry. All in favor, use your icons, please. And that is carried. I was surprised to see that this is the 10th year of that particular initiative. I I was trying to do the math, and I didn't think that it worked out, but I guess we started this initiative well before we actually started construction of the of phase one. So it's been very, very successful, and I guess there'll probably be a subsequent debate on whether or not there's a successor program or not. But I really found the use of the money for housing quite innovative. Not that we had done that in the past, but the whole purpose of this fund is to drive ridership in the Central Transit Corridor in phase two. And certainly we know housing has a lot to do. It's not just sidewalks and bus shelters and other things that we've been funding over the years in the phase two transit corridor, but now housing, and I think that's a good use of the money. The next item is the project approval for Dundas Street. Just questions and answers on this one. Get a motion to approve the project design. Councillor Kiefer. Okay, and who wants to second it? Councillor McGarry. Use your icons to vote in favor or opposed to the design for Dundas North and Cambridge. And that's carried. The next item is the accelerations of the region's automated speed enforcement program. It's here for information at the request of council. And we have a variety of staff available to answer questions that I'm sure there will be on this particular matter. There is no presentation, but Steve, did you want to highlight the report or just questions and answers? There are two reports, just so I'm clear here, there are two reports. This is on the acceleration piece, and the second report is on the methodology, the location selection methodology. We'll keep those separate. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the reports are fairly self-explanatory, but the acceleration report, as you said, is in response to a request from council to look at ways and feasibility in order to accelerate the region's automated speed enforcement program over and above the 16 sites that are planned for 2021. So in that report, staff have highlighted the challenges in doing so and as well next steps. And then in the subsequent report is about developing a scientific methodology for the location of sites, again, as requested by council. Happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Through you to staff. Part of the report talks about bottlenecks, and that's limiting our ability to maybe move ahead as quickly as we wanted to. Are there other ways that we can look to do traffic calming in our school zones? And so I'm going to talk particularly of our smaller towns where people are going through the towns rather quickly anyway and going past schools on some of the country roads. But I'm sure the cities have similar situations. So are there some other methods we can use to do some traffic calming in the interim?
Through the chair, yes, there are other tools in the region's toolbox, as well as tools in the area municipalities toolbox to try and get drivers to slow down. One of the initiatives that the region's been undertaking in hamlets where regional roads pass through is the use of flexible bollards to give the impression to the drivers of obstructions adjacent to the road with little reminders about the posted speed limit. And so far, the pilot project has been resulting in some positive results. We're seeing some speeds lowered. We're still assessing the program, but if we conclude that it is generally providing consistently a positive outcome, we will be implementing it on a more formal and widespread basis. There are other things that the region is looking at through reconstructions. We're generally looking at narrower lanes and providing a curbed cross-section where perhaps today there might be more of a rural or a shoulder type cross section. A narrower road does make drivers feel less comfortable, so they tend to drive slower. On local roads, there are more tools in the toolbox which aren't necessarily available on regional roads, things like vertical speed humps and horizontal constrictions in the road. Those would be more applicable to local roads. And we work with the area municipality staff on initiatives that are being done on both types of roads.
Thank you. I've seen the bollards. We've used them as well. And I look forward to hearing about how, from our staff and from you, to the success around those. Thanks.
Councillor McGarry.
Thank you. And I was very interested in the report. I know that municipalities in our area are all united in trying to use as many tools as possible to increase road safety for all users. And this is particularly important when we're trying to protect our children and families in front of our school zones and our schools. And this is a problem that our drivers in our municipalities don't seem to be getting, that slower speeds do less damage to road users such as pedestrians and cyclists. We need to use every tool in the toolbox. I know that Cambridge is currently supporting a pilot project in 3 different areas to lower our default speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour. Other municipalities in Ontario down to 30. But one of the tools that I'm excited to see in use is the ASE and the automatic speed enforcement rules. And I would really encourage us all to try and do everything that we need to in order to lobby our provincial government to ensure that we can all take advantage of this new tool and add it to the arsenal of tools that we've already got in our toolbox in order to finally make a difference in creating road safety for all users. Thank you.
Okay, I see no other speakers on this particular matter, and I just wanted to reiterate everything that Councillor McGarry said. I think that it is a huge issue, and we need to be seen and we need to be doing as much as we possibly can. Lobbying, advocating, implementing as much as we possibly can in terms of road safety. Okay, that was for information. And now on to the location selection methodology, Mr. Vanderkeer.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this report's in response to a council request to develop a scientific-based model in order to determine and rank locations for future automated speed enforcement locations. So staff formed a working group with counterparts in transportation engineering from each of the area municipalities. The working group looked through a number of factors that would affect the probability of what they consider like a severe injury to a pedestrian. They put those factors into the model and use that model to develop a scientific risk-based methodology for identifying sites. In recognition that the model tended to provide a little bit of bias towards high-speed locations where there may not necessarily be as many students, but the risk of severe injury is much higher where speeds are higher. Staff developed and the working group agreed with this 2-step model, which is presented, which first allocates any future funding toward expansion based on the proportion of schools in that particular municipality. And then the scientific model would be used during step 2 within each municipality to identify the top ranked schools. So staff are, I think, available to answer questions about the methodology and happy to hear some more from council about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through the chair. And one, I would like to thank staff for putting this together so early and apologize for me getting to it so late and doing some analysis over the past 24 hours and trading some notes with both regional and city staff on this, and because at the end of the day, it didn't work for me. And I've had, during our break this morning, had some conversations with one of our staff members who runs our crossing guards. So just as many of us are very familiar with all the schools and the what it's like there in the morning, she too is very familiar what it's like every morning, because we have crossing guards and have to say where they go, whether at this school or at that school or crossing here. And if I look at the proposed ranking, which is on, well, I don't know what page it's on. I printed it off and it has different page numbers here, 2 of 6, but it's the ASE site rankings for City of Waterloo. The top 2 are actually quite collector schools where everybody drives to them and there's no pedestrians on really walking to school or anything. So those 2 would come off my list. Looking down the list further, some are just automatic speed enforcement probably wouldn't work due to the nature of the curvature of the road. We're somewhere on a corner and people just can't speed there. Particularly congestion is the issue during school hours, or particularly entry and exit hours of school. And to take a long story short, we sat down at break time today and came up with what would be our top 3, taking into account that I know the schools and our school crossing guard expert knows the schools. And ironically, we would have ranked the 18th one number 1, the 5th one number 2, and the 7th one number 3. And so I think if you look at page 84 of the package, it lists about a dozen different parameters that go into this. And there, if anything, if I would send it back to staff, I would say, yet we need more. And at that point in time, it almost feels like we're creating a Frankenstein mathematical model to model neighborhood safety. And I'm not sure that council was wise in our decision to ask for this in the first place. If we look at intersections and which intersections need attention, we can look to a lot of independent variables like collisions and a few parameters like that. But to get to a dozen parameters, and at that point in time, we're probably, for the sake of what we're going to be doing for automatic speed enforcement, which might be one new one per municipality per year. I think we have community experts at our municipalities, people who know the neighborhoods, people who know the walkable schools, that can. We need to put away our hope on mathematics for solving this and go back to humans. And maybe just Mr. Van de Keer could comment. I know I've traded lots of notes or some significant notes with him in the past 24 hours.
Steve?
Through you, Mr. Chair, appreciate the comments from Councillor Jaworski. The working group wanted to develop a number of factors that could be where the information could be consistently collected at each and every school. The challenge with adding more factors, some of those factors, we don't have the information at every school, so then we can't use that information to rank all the schools consistently. So there are many schools that do not have crossing guards in front of them or in the vicinity within the school zone. So using crossing guard opinions is very valuable, but again, it's hard to apply that information consistently across a number of schools in the region where, as I said, many of them won't have crossing guard present. The working group worked hard to, like I said, get factors that could be applied consistently. So they used factors such as what type of road is in front of the school. So there are some key things like the number of lanes, the operating speed, the posted speed, what type of facility is there? Is there a sidewalk? Is there not a sidewalk? Some schools have high-speed traffic where kids are walking on the shoulder and there is no sidewalk. Those types of facilities can pose very high risks and probabilities of severe injuries to those schools. The number of kids at schools, the volume, as you would say, was also a factor. And various weights were applied to the different factors. Those weights can be adjusted so that, the ranking as shown could be adjusted to add more weight to the volume of pedestrians. Another thing I'd like to add is a key factor was what is the difference between the actual operating speed and the posted speed. So for instance, if there is a location where the operating speed is not that much higher or is close or even lower than the posted speed, then there wouldn't be much benefit in providing AST at that location, because you wouldn't get much benefit in terms of adjusting driver behavior, because the speeds are already operating at a fairly good level. So we looked at those as well. And again, the working group could take another look at the weightings applied to various factors. We also had the University of Waterloo review the factors that were applied, and they agreed that they were appropriate. The university does have a team that is building a similar model, which we expect would result in similar results. But of course, if you adjust the weightings, you can get slightly different results. So we're in council's hands today in terms of their preferences as to move forward. We were asked to prepare a scientific risk-based model. So we wanted to use the factors we could collect information on consistently across all the schools. But if there's another methodology that council wishes, we're in council's hands, and we could certainly come back with an adjustment if that's what's desired. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve. And I should have clarified that I wasn't talking to a school crossing guard. It's our manager of transportation who actually has to assess each and every school for school crossing guards or not. She just happens to run that program. And I think that, if anything, I think on the far right column, we actually have a raw score of like 138.0 and such all the way down that, at best, I was hoping to come up with this, that at least we could categorize that these are the A-level ones, and these are the B-level ones, and these are C-level ones. But as you heard, our top one that we would have picked based on our own knowledge and safety factors would have been a C-level one. And it's just, I'm just reluctant to send staff back on what could be a wild goose chase, doing extra effort, as opposed to calling it quits today. So certainly I won't be supporting this, and I really don't want to refer it back to staff for extra work, knowing that I'll probably vote against it again. But I see there's another hand up from a very wise lady, so I'll let her take the floor.
Chair Redmond, I think that's you. I'm not sure. It's the only hand I see, so.
Yeah, don't set the bar too high. I don't want to disappoint. My question may be a variation on Councillor Jaworski's. I understand that you want to have objective methodology and you want macro data as well as specific data. What was there consultation done with school boards on this, and as well as the Transportation Consortium? And I say that recognizing that there's always the qualitative and the quantitative kind of methodology, and just wondering if they were involved in how you perfected this process.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I'm inviting Bob Henderson to jump in if I've missed something. But I think the working group strictly included those traffic engineering staff from each of the area municipalities, recognizing that each and every one of them does have regular discussions with school board staff about issues at particular schools and so on. But I'll let Bob jump in if there's any more information that he has to add about what other consultation occurred.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes. Thank you, through you, Chair Galloway. We did specifically reach out to Student Transportation Services of Waterloo Region, who look after things like safe routes to school and student transportation to and from school. And we specifically shared the factors that we were using and applying into the model and asked them if they felt it was appropriate and if they had any other factors that they wanted included in the model. To advise the working group, they were happy with the factors that we applied to the model.
Thank you. I think that's an important piece of how we look at this methodology. Thank you.
Okay, I have no other speakers. We have a motion to consider. Is there someone willing to move that and second the motion? Looking for a hand. Councillor McGarry will move it, seconded by Councillor Schatz. So I'll call the question. If you would use your icons to say yay or nay to the staff recommendation? That's carried. I think 9-4. So. Okay, thank you very much for that. The next item on the agenda is the response time performance, EMS, plan for 2022. There's no presentation, but Chief Van Valkenburg is available to highlight the report and answer questions. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, and through the chair. So in front of you is the response time performance report. Compliance for 2020. We'll be submitting that to the ministry, and it's also the 2022 performance report as well. And as you can see by the results, we've been doing very well with reaching our compliance. We're in compliance with all our factors within the response time performance, which means we're getting to the sick people the quickest and within the response time that we've set. We've now had 1 year of experience with our sudden cardiac arrest, moving that from a 50% to 70%, and you can see that we're well above the 70% as well. So we'll monitor that for another year, and we may raise that next year, and we'll come back to you and seek direction on that as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that there may be on the response time performance plan.
Okay, any questions to the chief on the 2022 plan? Seeing none, thanks very much, Chief. And we'll carry on to the next item, and that is the election sign issue. Oh, there's a recommendation. I'm sorry, yes. Yeah, that wasn't just for information. There's a recommendation to approve the 2022 plan. So, Councillor Clark, Chair Redmond, if you would vote yea or nay with your icons on approving the response time performance plan for 2022. That's carried, thank you. And now on to the election sign issue. This is an information item, although Councillor Erb has introduced a motion. The staff report is information. Mr. Hudson is here to speak to the report or answer any questions. So, Councillor Erb, is it a question or were you going to speak to your motion?
I was going to speak to the motion.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions of staff on the report itself? Seeing none, okay, I'll turn it over to you, Councillor Erb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Council, remember, it was a notice of motion that I brought before Council in April. Staff reported back on that notice of motion in May, and then Council referred this to the License Committee for some more information. And now it's back to Council after there was no consensus at the Licensing Committee. And I really do think it's time that we make a decision given the time frame. And for the same reasons that I spoke to in May and April and a few more, I'd like to place the following motion in front of committee today for potential support. And I think Mr. Brubaker may have it, be able to share it on the screen if that's required. That the Council of the Regional Municipality of Waterloo direct staff to prepare an amendment to bylaw 10-030, a bylaw respecting signs on all regional road rights of way, is amended to ban the placement of all election signs on regional roads to be effective on January the 1st, 2022. And that the amending bylaw be placed on the November 17th, 2021 Regional Council agenda, Council's consideration. I'll wait to see if there's a seconder to get it on.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Chair Redmond. Go ahead, Councillor Erb.
Thank you. And I'm not going to go into all the detail that I shared at a previous meeting. However, I do want to remind committee of some of my main concerns. The use of non-biodegradable signage that ends up in our landfill, a general appearance of clutter on our roadways and a potential liability for the region with volunteers erecting them, staff time, the unfair advantage to incumbents, concerns for candidates who come from racialized or marginalized communities, and the use of publicly owned land for election signs. The majority of election signs used today are made of chloroplast, which is a non-biodegradable plastic product. Many of these signs, especially from candidates that are not elected, end up in our landfill site. And one of the key principles in our strategic plan is, and I would quote, is to reduce, reuse, and recycle, including a ban on plastics. And so if we're really serious about respecting our own policy, one of the concrete steps we could take as regional councilors is to eliminate the number of chloroplast signs that end up in the landfill site. And if you think roadsides throughout the region of Waterloo look cluttered now because of election signs from only 4 or 5 political candidates, you're really like the spring of 2022 when the same thing will happen all over again during the provincial election. And then the grand finale with the municipal election in the fall of 2022, when there will be many more candidates running for the public school board, separate school board, local municipalities, and regional government. In 2018, the last municipal election, there were 184 candidates registered with the region of Waterloo that put signs up on regional roads, plus another 9 individuals who registered as candidates for the by-election in Ward 7 in Cambridge. So just imagine the clutter we can anticipate in 2022. In just 3 weeks since federal candidates have been able to put signs on regional properties, our rights of way along regional roads look cluttered and unkept, with some signs that are hanging to just one post or damaged because of wind or vandalism, and then getting in the way of regional staff as they try to mow or trim around them. And only one of those candidates in the federal election is going to be successful, and probably will keep them as an incumbent to run again. And the rest, all made of chloroplast, are going to end up in our landfill site. Election signs on municipal property, I think, give a distinct advantage to incumbents from their involvement in previous elections. Incumbents know the elections, the rules, and usually have the resources to pay for them and the volunteers to have them placed. Elections come as a significant expense, and incumbents are usually in a better position to raise the money than first-time candidates. First-time candidates, on the other hand, need to purchase 100% of their signs, which can be a significant barrier and a deterrent for first-time candidates. Excuse me, if I decide to seek re-election in 2022 as an incumbent, I think I now have an unfair advantage as a candidate. I don't have to spend money on signs. I have them in stock, and I knew the routine to get them up. One of the reasons Council asked for a deferral of this issue was for comment from the region's Equity, Inclusion, and Human Rights team. And as I read and interpreted this report, there is a significant challenge for racialized and marginalized groups to have adequate funding to compete with signs on public property and therefore they could be at a distinct disadvantage to compete with incumbents or well-financed candidates. As well, studies have shown that candidates who do not have traditionally anglicized names are at a disadvantage, and consequently their names on signs may or may not have an impact, and therefore some interpret this as another disadvantage because of unfamiliar name recognition. Point C in the report from the team indicates that equal access to regional property allows all candidates the same opportunity. However, again, because of limited access to funding, candidates from racialized and marginalized groups may have trouble competing with a number of signs placed by incumbents based on their financial ability. And so my sense is with that the information that we have to date, there is no research that banning election signs may harm the ability of individuals from minority populations. And finally, the most important in my mind, and I think in the mind of the public, is that election signs just do not have any place on public property. And when placed there, give a significant advantage for incumbent candidates. Election signage should be a sign of support and not distorted by a proliferation of signage on public property. Elections are to be decided by meaningful public engagement at the door and in other public settings, not by signs on public property. I am not aware of any research that suggests election signs on public property translate into voter support. However, that support is significant for private property. Neighbors ask neighbors why they have a specific sign candidate on their lawn, which may help influence how someone may vote. However, I'm convinced that same question or rationale has absolutely no application to sign on public property. and I must say, it feels a bit awkward that some on council who will be making this decision could be incumbent candidates for the next municipal election in October of 2022. And in my mind, if, like me, think election signs on property are an advantage to incumbents, are making a decision that would be to their benefit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Erb. So we have it moved and seconded, and we'll start the debate. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. I do believe, and in fact I know, that this is a ban that would disproportionately affect lower income candidates. And with your indulgence, I'll share why I know that to be true. In the 2018 election, I spent a total of $3,000 on my campaign. That was by far the lowest that any candidate spent. I did not reuse any signs. In the 2014 campaign, I spent slightly more than that, but it was in the same general ballpark. The main reason that I was able to spend so little money is that I made a decision very early on not to participate in the sign wars that we've been discussing. So I bought a total of 100 signs. I did not reuse them in 2014. I bought new ones in 2014 and 2018. I bought a total of 100 signs. I did give them out to people who contacted me asking me for them. I didn't do any door. I didn't look for sign locations. I have a full-time job and I didn't have time. And I chose not to spend my money that way. So I won't be running again, but what I will be doing is working for other candidates and working with the Women's Municipal Campaign School. One of the things that we hear every election when we do the campaign school is candidates who say, I want to run, I think I have something to offer, but I don't have the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 that other candidates spend, and I don't have access to that sort of money. What I tell those candidates now is you don't need to spend that sort of money. Don't worry about lawn signs. Don't spend your money on something that's so wasteful. Go with strategy, put out your signs on high traffic, high visibility roads, because if you have your sign at the right intersection, it's going to be seen by thousands of people a day, not by the one person who might happen to glance up and see your sign in somebody's apartment window. If this ban happens, I won't be able to give that advice to candidates who want to run, but maybe only have $5,000 to spend. They'll have to participate in that if they want to get their name out at all. And really, for new candidates, it's not a matter of demonstrating support, it's a matter of name recognition. If they want to get their name out at all, they'll have to participate in that front lawn competition, which is extremely expensive and extremely time consuming. So I know from experience that you can run a campaign for $5,000 or less, but not if you do the lawn signs.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Fox.
Thank you, and through the chair. Councillor Reep, I'd love to ban signs. I think they're ugly. I think they're an eyesore. It's a bad time of year. It's not a nice, bright, sunny time of year, and they get wrecked and everything else. But reality is, running for mayor, your signs have to be all over the community. A lot of the roads in North Dumfries are regional roads. How much of an advantage do I have because I've already been mayor? I already have name recognition. And if I don't allow my opponents to put up signs in the major thoroughways, I'm sort of just, it looks like I'm backing my own votes. I'm disadvantaging them to get the visibility they'll need for people to even see who their names are. Right now in the election, I drive around and I try and see who all is running. And it's based on those signs I see. A lot of them, I know, you say homes, people don't want you to know how they're voting now. I can't believe the number of less signs in people's homes than ever before in our municipalities. They want to see them on the local roads or the regional roads, high traffic, but they don't want them on their front lawn. They don't want to represent one person or another, have somebody. Why are you representing them? Because it is a hostile society right now. People are arguing right, left, and center about anything. I just, at the lunch break, I looked at a Facebook thing and somebody had supported some person and 20 people attacked them on Facebook. Why the heck would you do yourselves to that? You're going to see more needs for signs on high traffic roads than on homes, because a really close friend, when I ran for the last election, said, Sue, I don't want to put your sign on my road, my house, because I don't want the other people attacking me because I support you. And so I don't ask people. If they contact me for a sign, I'll give them a sign. But somebody new, especially if it's a regional level, that's a lot. I mean, you have to have a lot of signs in a lot of high traffic areas. I wish we could ban them, Jim. I wish there was a better way, but I really don't see a better way. And maybe we should have research into a better way of making signs that are recyclable, and get rid of what's going on now. But I'd love to support it, your motion, because I hate the ugliness of the sign. I hate putting up signs. I don't have volunteers. My husband and I are the volunteers, but I can't do that to somebody that wants to run against me.
Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you very much through the chair. There was certainly discussion that some municipalities, for example, the city of Waterloo, have not allowed signs for quite some time. And I did ask our clerk to take a look at it. It's going back in time, it's at least 1976 is what they could find. So it's been certainly quite a while that they haven't been allowed in the city of Waterloo, where there's quite a high municipal voter turnout rate. And I think during at least of provincial and federal elections, where it's the color matters and is not about name recognition. And you can see the complaints that we've had over the past few weeks, where the signs, they do blow down in those winds. They do get kicked down, are vandalized, they are spray painted. and then they sit there as a blight in our community, and because simply, as some have mentioned here, the sign volunteers simply can't keep up once they're out and can't manage them. And so then it falls to bylaw where we go collect them, and the ones that are blown down or hit by a lawnmower and that. And there's just a lot of complaints that we've passed along to region where they're blocking visual sight lines for traffic. Certainly in the past, advertising, that was one way. We now have Facebook and Twitter and other different ways to get messages out there and get people talking. And certainly, the opportunity to go door to door, to build a website, those just weren't available many years ago. And if I think back to, say, the last municipal election, where we might have five brands of signs out today, within a few days within a handful of days of a municipal election, the signs being allowed to go up, you went from one sign to 5 participants to 18 participants to 20 participants. And then you're driving along a regional road at your 50 kilometers an hour, and it's a picket fence of signs. So in terms of, the distraction to actually look to pick out a sign, it simply is not possible. And as you know, last term of council, we made sure we moved them away from the intersections. So they wouldn't be a distraction. They wouldn't be in our roundabouts, not where people are sitting still and can look at them. You essentially have to be driving by. And that in and of itself is a bit nonsensical on some of our busiest roads. So with that, I think through all the different opportunities that people have, and the stacks of signs that incumbents have ready to go on day one, that is an unfair advantage. And I think the time has come where it's vote for the candidate who has a good policy, not the best signs.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Galloway. Just to add on to Councillor Jaworski's comments as the seconder of this motion, I feel I need to speak to it. This is not meant to disparage anybody else's view, but we are the level of government that have the authority to make this decision. And we can decide whether or not signs go on road allowances. And I have a basement full of signs, and I got a crew that'll put them out. But I have to tell you, next election, like every election, I worry about the safety of my volunteers. And I worry about them stopping along roadways. And I'd also point out that the region covers 5 federal ridings. So it's a huge expanse. And so I think it's about the volunteers. And I think when I think about the federal campaign that's going on right now, and I hear the disparaging comments that are made about candidates who don't show up. And we've been very blessed at the municipal level, and I know that we're also looking at a provincial election just several months away. People need to participate. People want to exercise their franchise, and they want to hear what people have to say. At this level of government, it's not partisan politics. So coming out to hear what the person thinks, what their vision is for whatever position they're running for, whether it's school board, an area municipal seat, a mayor, or somebody on regional council, it matters what they think and it matters what they say. As Councillor Jaworski has pointed out too, there are many other ways to contact and to reach out to constituents to share your vision with them. So we are the level of government that has the jurisdiction to make this decision, and it will impact all of us. And I do believe that the number of signs incumbents have is an advantage, just as being an incumbent is an advantage. So I think doing away with signs on regional road allowances is a step in the right direction for greater equality for new candidates that want to run. So that's why I'm supporting this motion.
Councillor Verbanovic.
Thanks very much, Chair Galloway. And this certainly has been a difficult issue, and one that I continue to grapple with. While I do respect some of the viewpoints and arguments that have been made, and I think some of them are very legitimate arguments, in favor of the motion that's brought forward. I think there are others that, quite frankly, are not consistent with, with my experience and what I hear from talking to people. And so, while on one end we can certainly argue that, incumbency, certainly from a cost perspective, does give people an advantage in terms of having signs already. The incumbency also gives people an advantage in terms of sign locations on private properties because they already have people from previous campaigns who have indicated that they're supporting them and potentially can get their signs on those lawns again. Whereas new candidates, and we've heard this argument many times, when they start out, the only place they can put their signs is on public land. So I think we need to be cautious with that argument because it does cut both ways. I do think and in listening to candidates, and I've talked to and followed the thoughts on this issue from some candidates, even in this current federal election, I think there are a number of other reasons for us to consider actually moving away from allowing them on regional road right-of-ways. I do buy into the argument that that was made, and Chair Redmond raised it at the end. At the end of the day, signs on regional roads don't vote, and Councillor said they reflect signs on private property actually reflect support, generally speaking, as long as the candidate has actually gone to the trouble of asking permission to put the sign there ahead of time. And unfortunately, we hear of stories where that doesn't even end up being the case. And I know there was a local councillor long before Councillor or Chair Redmond's and my time on Kitchener Council who had a reputation for just placing signs around the city on private property. And generally they didn't get removed, surprisingly. Anyway, my point on that issue is that I think there is something to be said around the safety argument. But really the compelling one for me right now is really looking at it from an environmental point of view. And if we're truly going to ensure that we do better as a community in terms of sustainability and so on, I think there is a significant argument to be had there going forward. That coupled with the notion of people vote, signs don't. I think looking at this and simply allowing it to continue on private property it is a way I'm willing to consider. And I think what will happen is between now and when the bylaw would come forward in November, which is the date that Councillor Erb has proposed, certainly that will provide an opportunity for any delegations to come forward. So I'm willing to support this. And I'm willing to hear from, arguments on both sides of the issue when this comes forward in November before I make a final decision. But I will support the recommendation in front of us today.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak? I would make some comments myself. As we set out in this particular matter a number of months ago, I probably was not inclined to support the notion, having been through this discussion on a few previous occasions over the years. But I have been, there are good arguments on both sides of this issue. So it's not to diminish or negate any of the arguments that have been made in support of the recommendation or opposed to the recommendation. This is one of those not so black and white issues. But I'm coming down on the side of supporting the recommendation for a lot of the reasons that Councillor Erb enunciated, and the same kind of issues that Chair Redmond and Councillor Urbanek and others have discussed. What I want to add to that discussion, in addition to, I think, things are changing in a lot of areas. There's a lot of disruption going on in all different facets of our society, and the internet and digital is certainly a part of that phenomena, and certainly provides even better. If someone has limited resources, then they are much better to spend those resources on digital type of advertising, which is quite cheap and quite effective, I would think, as opposed to signs. And that's just my opinion. I'm not sure there's any research in that regard. Certainly the response that I've heard from people who know that this is an issue and is being discussed today has been almost, but not quite, almost unanimous in support of what is being proposed, including yesterday a current federal candidate, first-time candidate, not an incumbent, who asked that we proceed to ban election signs because of their experience during this particular election. And I want to reflect on that a bit because maybe one of the things that hasn't been discussed to any great extent in the debate is the compliance. And the amount of work that our bylaw people need to do to maintain compliance and deal with complaints as candidates argue with each other about locations and covering up the others, and then somebody's got two in a block and I can only have one. And I've been observing as I go around, most typically on my bike, and the amount of non-compliance is really disturbing. And it's not so bad in a federal election with only 4 candidates, but I just can't imagine what it's going to be like in a municipal election with 100 or more candidates. It just seems like some candidates can't count, like there's only supposed to be 1 sign in a block, but they sneak in a second one. There's not supposed to be any signs in the center median, but there they are in the center median. They're not supposed to be any closer than, 3/4 of a meter to the roadway, but they're right up against the curb. And so we put this load on to our enforcement staff then to go out and tell candidates, and it's a catch me if you can mentality with some candidates, and to be fair, there are some candidates who go strictly by the rules, okay? And you can tell who they are. I'm not going to out anybody, but I can also tell you who are the ones that are not going by the rules. And then it forces the other candidates to complain, and then our enforcement staff has to get out in the middle of that. And so I really think that it gets away from that whole game that gets played between candidates and parties, particularly at the provincial and federal level, and the games that kind of get played. So I intend to support this and see it come back in November, and we'll obviously have another discussion at that time once we get the version of the bylaw that staff would craft for us, and that may give rise some additional questions, but I will support Councillor Erb's recommendation at this time. Okay, no further comments. I'll call the question. If you would use your icons. Sorry? Councillor, did you have your hand up again, or?
Am I allowed to speak a second time, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you're the mover. Well, typically allow people to speak a second time, yeah.
Thank you. Just picking up a bit on the enforcement, and it's been quite comical watching the game going on between federal candidates trying to outsign one another and get them placed soon as one goes up, another one is there within the required time. But for our regional staff, in the last municipal election, they logged 354 hours responding to complaints and removed almost 700 signs that were improperly placed. And if you assume that a typical work week is of 35 hours, that's 10 hours or 10 weeks of staff time dealing with election signage complaints in the last municipal election. And I know in the staff report that we're dealing with today, it says that banning election signs is not going to stop the enforcement that staff may have to undertake. However, my position on that is that if candidates are not, if they are banned and candidates are not aware that there is a ban, then my question would be, I'm not sure what it says about a candidate that they don't know what the bylaws are or how they're going to interpret bylaws if they want to get elected.
Okay, thank you. I'll call a question now. So if you could use your voting icons, yay or nay, in regards to Councillor Erb's motion. Councillor Erb, are you voting yes? Okay.
My screen just went blank.
Okay, that is carried. All right. Thank you. We don't have any other regular items, but I believe we have two other items to deal with. And the first, I think, Councillor Clark, you wanted to raise.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Galloway. I did have a direction, I suppose, to staff, and I have discussed this with staff, so I know that it's acceptable. I think that it's been about a year now that the region's been working on our anti-racism and reconciliation work through a whole bunch of different avenues, and I think there's an awful lot going on. And I think that the public has an interest in sort of knowing officially where we are with that. So I would like to request a report to come forward in October, just providing the highlights of that work.
Okay, Mr. Lochner, is October okay?
Yes, I'll defer to Ms. McDonald. I believe we have something coming next week as well. Is Connie on?
Okay, Connie.
Thank you through the chair. There is a report that is coming to council on the 22nd, which provides an update on reconciliation activities, which was an ask from the last council meeting. And October for the other update is a very reasonable timeline.
Okay, okay, that's doable. Councillor Foxton on this matter?
Thank you. Actually, last night at our council, we passed some wonderful things that the reconciliation group had done. And I never even thought it hasn't come to regional council yet. But it's a really, really good. Maybe, Connie, we can get that shared because the municipalities shouldn't have it before the regional councils. Can we share that document with all of regional councils so they're all aware of what passed last night? Our council passed it last night. Several councils will still be coming it, but the region really should have had it before we did, or at least at the same time. It's really, really good. You've done a really good job. And it really should be shared with regional council.
Thank you. And through the chair, if I may respond, the similar and same report is coming through to regional council next week. So we've been working collaboratively with all of the local municipalities on that and should be in your council package.
So just a matter of timing. Okay, any other comments on that? So we look forward to both those reports. Thank you, Councillor Clark. The second matter is one that I wanted to raise, and again, it's just a request of staff to do a report. I've had some discussion with Mr. Muskie, who is our active transportation engineer, about cross rides, which are those paint markings on streets and on trails. We seem to be very inconsistent in regards to our application of those. So, for instance, along Victoria Street, where we have recently installed a new multi-use trail, one section has them and the next section doesn't. And I'm just wondering if we can get a staff report on what is our policy on these cross rides where, you know, people coming in and out of homes or particularly coming in and out of businesses would need to stop for pedestrians and cyclists on our multi-use trails. The city of Kitchener, in my observation, it does quite a good job in this regard, but on their trails, but the region, I'm not sure what our policy is, and if I could get a report on that as it relates to multi-use trails particularly, but also intersections. And that is something that I've noticed, and also members of the community have contacted me looking for some guidance. So if that's a report, Mr. Schmidt, I guess if you wanted, you want to comment on that? What's a reasonable time frame for that report?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we can provide a report. Likely the earliest would be November, so November, December type of time frame. Definitely not October.
That's fine.
So, yeah.
That's fine. Okay. Is there any other matters to bring to the Committee of the Whole today? Okay, our next meeting is October the 12th, and a motion to adjourn moved by Councillor Kiefer and Councillor Jowett. If you would use your icons, voting icons, to support or wanting to continue the meeting. It's close. Looking for, barely, but it has been approved. Okay, thanks one and all, and look at that. It's 2:45 and the Hydro Board meeting starts in 45 minutes. Councillor Herb, you were just waving goodbye, were you? Okay.
Doodles, kids.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, staff.
Someday we should all vote against adjournment.